Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host.
And I'm Missy.
And we are following Willow. This has been our weekly deep dive show into the Disney Plus series Willow. And we are on Chapter 8, The Children of the Wyrm. Oh my gosh. We cover Willow from a meta-mythical fairy tale perspective. We're both huge Willow fans, and we will be fangirling along the way as we talk about the show. You know, just as a meta-mythical perspective, it means that some of these themes and topics might hit you psychologically and might touch something. So we always just want to make sure that you're aware that we not only talk about the characters, but also about things that the story evokes in us, because really that's the point of story, is to give us other people's perspectives and allow us to explore things in a fictional safe space. All right. We really want to thank everyone who has supported the show this whole way along. We have seen this fandom grow, and it's really wonderful to see everybody jumping in aboard and loving the hell out of Willow, creating fan art, creating fic, doing edits, doing long meta threads on different aspects of the show. Missy, what have you loved about this?
It's been so fun to watch the fandom grow and blossom. I love that such a smart fandom. Like, I appreciate everyone tuning in to hear what we have to say, but wow, like the perspectives people have and the areas of expertise that people are bringing to the table is just amazing to me. We've got people who, you know, have specialties in certain areas of literature, who are coming at this understanding, you know, a lot about queer theory, or just so many different perspectives, and all feeding into this. And so like I'm learning a ton every week. It's crazy. So that's been by far the most fun. It's just, I love watching it grow. And I love that we're watching a show that feels like it loves us back.
Yeah, so
it absolutely does. That's been a really fun experience.
Yeah, I absolutely just want to shout out Chase, or AKA That Gay Jedi. He had this amazing tweet that I just want to read out. By going back to an epic and nostalgic baked ways of storytelling, Willow has managed to inject newness, freshness, and oneness into contemporary TV and media. A delicious meta experience of blending the old with the new. Willow is both a bygone story and ahead of its time. I love this so much. And yes, exactly. You've encapsulated it in a small tweet while we still have them. And now onto the long form, 1,000,000-hour podcast. I seriously don't know how long this will be, so I apologize in advance. Also, a shout out to some of the crazy smart fans that have been participating on the What the Force Discord, which is a hop in place thanks to the brilliance of Willow. Ch.8 Springs, who of course brings all this Cthulhu mythos to the table, which I had no basis of other than like playing the RPG like 3 times. And a shout out to crazy_Hatter and Tom from the What the Force Discord for literally going from 0 to translating Nakotic across the board and basically going across all the episodes and starting to translate wherever Nakotic was found. I am blown away by your brilliance. We are still missing the letters J, Q, and Z. If Lucasfilm really wants to release those.
If you want to give us the concept art book, you know. That would be great.
We'll translate it because they will. No, and we actually have like a letter key and everything that, you know, people have been tweeting out. So it's brilliant. This fandom is, to your point, Missy, so smart. And I love that more people are talking about the story the way you and I talk about the story.
Yeah. Well, and frankly, some of the delicious irony of it, the fact that it is such a smart show and the fandom around it is so smart and everything, is the way that people who aren't seeing that and don't appreciate that keep referring to the show as like, oh, you know, it's just like easygoing light fantasy, like not, you know, nothing heavy. And I'm sitting here laughing because it really is Star Wars all over again. It's people that are like, oh, it's just a spaghetti Western in space. I'm like, it is. but also it's this really deep psychological journey at the same time.
Don't know where this quote came from, so I'm going to just quote it or do a paraphrase, and then somebody's going to tell me where it's from. But the idea that you can have two conflicting things in your brain at the same time is the true sign you are an adult. And the idea that all of these things, it can be a cheesy 80s fantasy and also modern and also incredibly mythic, can all be true.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay to enjoy it on these different levels. So if you just want to enjoy it as this goofy, campy fun, go for it. That's great. And it, the creators want you to be able to enjoy it on that level, and on the other hand, if you want to be like us and, talk for a million hours about it, that's cool too.
Absolutely. And on a personal level, this is the first show in a really long time that I've shared with my kids from Lucasfilm, and they have enjoyed it and stuck with it to the end of the season. I don't know how much, I don't know how to express how much that means to me, that I get to share something with this ethos, with this ethic, with this beauty, and things I can take away and have discussions with my kids about. And they love it as much as I do, and they are invested in the characters. They love them so much. This gives them something to grow up with. That's wonderful. All right. Missy, ready to move on to comments and questions for MC and Missy?
Of course.
All right. Do you want to read the first one?
Sure. All right. So this one comes from Marianne Maid. And it says, this finale felt uncanny in how closely it aligned with popular theories and predictions for a different franchise. It feels like someone is listening. I feel seen and heard. How did you two feel watching the episode play out the way it did? Marie-Claire.
Oh my goodness.
What do you think she's referring to, and how did you feel?
Star Wars and the Reylo fandom and all of the metas and podcasts that we have written and talked about and everything like that. I think that's what Marianne Maid is referring to, but it could be others that involve in things. And actually, this story has a lot of parallels to other stories out there. I get a lot of She-Ra out of it, and I get a lot of other stories out of it. And frankly, that means it is plugging into our subconscious in a way that it is resonating. I use that term to say that it's like vibrating on a base level deep within our subconscious. And so it's speaking to us not only through the base story and the plot that the characters are going through, but also, speaking to symbolism that the storytellers are obviously very well aware of. I can tell that the storytellers understand what George Lucas is saying. I can tell that they have read Joseph Campbell and possibly many other sources that Missy and I also are pulling on to do our analysis. And that's how I feel about it. Although it does feel a little uncanny sometimes.
It feels quite pointed. And that's kind of my overall feeling watching is, on the one hand, it was very surreal watching the finale. I mean, it's surreal watching the whole show, but especially the finale. It really felt like, they reached out, grabbed us by the collar and said, this is for you.
Especially like how much you and I could see coming, but that's also good storytelling and writing.
Well, and that's okay. So a couple things here. So firstly, with regard to this playing into theories that we had before for Star Wars, for the sequel trilogy, yes, but I think that was more just that our theories for the sequel trilogy were, frankly, correct. Had they followed a logical story structure and been consistent with their themes, and we were not wrong. It was just, unfortunately, we ended up with some mythic dissonance because of a few people that really didn't fully understand the symbols they were working with, or maybe just weren't in agreement about the direction that the story needed to take. So, it ended up being a little disjointed.
Can I just add a comment on that?
Yeah.
So
sure.
It's really important that you as a storyteller understand the symbols that you are working with, because it will create a cognitive mythical dissonance in your brain if you use a symbol that is not meant to be there. That's all. And so
yes,
that's what happened. And it's happened in other storytelling. It's happened all across the board because people just weren't maybe listening to their subconscious enough when they were writing.
Honestly, think of pretty much any poorly received ending of a major story, whether it be film franchise, TV show, even comics or books, anything. Think of any just very poorly received ending. And in all likelihood, that is what you're looking at, is that on some level, someone wasn't clear on the promises that they were making through the symbols, right? The symbols they were using, and what sort of psychological strings they were pulling on. And so it didn't ultimately satisfy the audience. And the thing is, satisfaction means catharsis. It doesn't necessarily mean happy ending or, tragic or anything. Like, it can be happy, tragic, bittersweet, anything in between. That's fine, but we need to have catharsis, or there needs to be deliberately withheld catharsis for a very clear, obvious reason, which sometimes happen, but that also requires a pretty deft hand. So anyway, the point of all of this is to say, did it feel quite pointed? Yes. But on the other hand, it could have been, as Marie Claire said, just good storytelling where they very carefully delivered on the promises that they made. So
they made promises and kept them. I refer to this with some of the things that they introduced earlier on in the story, and Missy and I both called them out to say, hey, that's a magical flute. It's going to be his magic. And guess what? It was just, they understood that symbolism is also a Chekhov's gun.
Yep.
Chekhov's gun, Google it. I don't have time to go into it. Cool.
And with regard to our analysis of this show, and especially this particular episode, what I want to say is this. Of course, we're probably going to call out a lot of the similarities, anything that's going to specifically go, that makes me think of Star Wars. We're going to talk about it. This is a Star Wars podcast. So that's going to happen. However, I want to make sure that we understand that our goal here is to talk about why this story works.
Yes.
Not, why it's, a gotcha to another story. Because the problem is, one of the biggest issues with Tross is the fact that it felt like a point-by-point response to bad faith criticisms of TLJ. And if that's all this was, it would not have succeeded.
No, but it loved itself as a story, and it treated itself as its own story. It understood the mythological language that it was working with and used it correctly.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, that's all I want to say about that. That was a much longer response than,
It's okay. We had thoughts.
But there you go.
We've been thinking about this for weeks.
It's true.
Okay, so the next question is from Claire. Did you think that when Alora and Kit went into the light and they were like in that magical garden, that Eric looked like Graydon with the facial hair and everything? Also, love the pod, and this show is so great. All right, let's talk about how Eric looked like Graydon. Okay, so Graydon has transformed over the course of the season through one reason or another. Happy stance, had to shave his beard, whatever. And yes, Eric is wearing similar drip, similar costuming. He has similar amount of facial hair as now Graydon has. And although his hair is shorter, it also looks more suave, like Graydon's typically does. And I think that it's really important to call out that even though Eric maybe looked as much like Graydon as he could in this fantasy, Alora was still not attracted to dark Eric. I think that's just the important thing to say.
Yeah.
It wasn't a type thing. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah. It wasn't about her type. And it'll be interesting as we get further into this episode, because I think her desires are really, frankly, the hinge on which everything turns. Like, her desires are absolutely critical to this episode and probably now the whole story across
Are you
all
talking
3
about
seasons.
The micro and the macro again?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I love it. There was a lot more questions, and we want to thank everyone for them. A lot of them were speculation, and so we want to actually save them for a cool thing that we are planning on doing. I guess I forgot to drop this before, so I'll talk about it now. We are going to do a live stream on January 21st at 1 p.m. Called Celebrating Willow.
1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time.
Yes, 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, which is 10 a.m. Pacific U.S. time.
Yeah.
Go to those zone calculators wherever you happen to be. And I know that it might not work for everybody, but it will be recorded. You will be able to find it. It will also drop on the podcasts. But we are going to use visuals, like a PowerPoint presentation, because we're nerds. So it'll be really, really cool. We're going to do some cool stuff like covering the symbolism for the whole season with visuals so you can actually see what we're talking about. And we're going to have some special guests. So look forward to that, and look forward to seeing you all then. All right, let's move on to Maiden to Mage. Oh, our final Maiden to Mage for these episodes. Although we might do a mini one, maybe something. We'll do something maybe for the live stream.
Yeah, I think this is probably not the last we've heard of it, especially because I'd love to talk about where we think some of these characters are headed next, but we just don't have time for that today.
Yeah. So again, speculation time on the live stream. Yes. All right. Who do we talk about first? Do you want to do Borman or Allura?
Let's talk about Borman. As we've said about Borman, he was really getting closer and closer to Queen. Now, just a reminder to everyone. So Maiden to Mage. So Maiden, Hero, Queen, King, Crone, Mage. Those are the stages. Please refer to our other episodes for more detail. Just want to clarify that these are the archetypical phases in the life cycle of a character or a person. And most of our characters did start as maidens, with the exception of Borman, who started as a cowardly hero, and also Willow, who started as a hermited crone.
Yeah.
And so here we are, end of season 1, and Borman has finally become a queen. And the way that this happened was when he attempted the Lux in the last episode and failed. Yeah. That was his symbolic death. The realization, his ego death, the realization this is not for him.
I'm nobody.
Yep, I'm nobody. Exactly. That was a symbolic death for him. But he had to lean into it. He needed to sort of accept that symbolic death and learn from it and then resurrect. And so this episode, he is like, well, maybe there is something more, something worth fighting for. And he throws himself over the waterfall. So he sort of completes the symbolic death. And then while they're fighting, he realizes it's Kit's story. It's their story, not his. He gives her the cuirass as we said he would, and hands the Lux to Jade, and then he faces the Gales on his own, which is vanquishing the dragon, so that Kit and Jade could save Allura. This makes him their protector, the queen. So
I also want to say that he was a baby queen or a parent for a little while when he was literally trying to hide Jade and Graydon in the sand. It was like a mama like animal trying to hide his babies. It was so cute.
It was adorable. And then later, I love when he finally emerges, which I guess you could see as sort of a rebirth moment there. When he finally emerges after feeding the Gales, and he says, I want my mom.
I want my mom. Yeah.
And the thing is that the queen and the mother are the same archetype. They're really used interchangeably. So he is a mother queen, a queen mother. So,
and I've been calling him Papa Borman in my notes.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So that's very exciting. Yay, Queen Borman.
All right, let's talk about Allura.
I am so excited. All right. So Allura, as we said, also started the story as a maiden. She became a hero at the end of episode 4. We knew she was moving toward Queen. She also needed to have that symbolic death and resurrection. We mentioned she did have one last episode, again, with sort of this realization that she was going to die. That's what the vision said. and then the resurrection of, going with Kit into the immemorial city in order to try to face the dragon. However, I would argue that she actually repeated that cycle in this episode. She had a regression, but it was a deliberate regression. It was done purposefully in order to show how it was a false boon and she needed to not take a particular direction. We'll go into more detail in the episode, but what ends up happening is that she's supposed to kill the witch because that's what Elora Danan is supposed to do. And so the crone calls her out on this and says, well, you don't really want it. She notes that you don't, the reason you're failing is because you don't really want this. And Elora, she's trying to do what she's supposed to do. It's her responsibility, but it's not a soul deep desire until the crone kills, air quotes, Graydon. And then it's personal. And then she's fueled by loss, love, rage to do what she wants. And now she wants to kick that crone's ass. And so this is the wisdom that she passes to Kit.
Yes.
Later, which is, Kid, I know you're supposed to kill your brother for the greater good, but what do you really want? And what Kit really wants is to save Eric.
Yeah. And she helps, but she doesn't do it. She helps, right? And that's the key. Yeah.
And that's the key.
Oh, this show. What is this show?
I know. So she vanquished her own dragon and then immediately passed on the knowledge, the wisdom. Yep. The elixir to Kit. And in so doing becomes the protector, the queen.
Yep.
No,
I was just agreeing.
Without going into too much detail, I would expect her to probably have another regression next season. I do think they'll take her back to hero for a little while. I could be wrong, but that's my expectation because I feel like that's the easiest way to kind of write a cohesive story for a full season. But we'll see.
Yes. We can speculate on the live stream.
Exactly. More detail later.
All right. And we actually have somebody else to talk about. A final entry. The person the show is named after. Let's talk about Willow.
Yay! Who's excited to finally see him become a mage?
I am.
Me too. Oh my God. It only took you the entire season. Jeez. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the crone's true transformation.
Yes. So Willow has been, as we've mentioned, avoiding the spiritual death the entire season of confronting his shortcomings, his mistakes, his failures. He's afraid to admit what happened to Kaya. He's afraid of,
losing Mims.
He failed. Right. He failed Rannan. He's afraid of failing Mims and Elora both. And so even at the waterfall, he turns back. He's still unwilling to embrace the possibility of more failure, more spiritual death. But then he changes his mind. And it's kind of unfortunate that we didn't see him change his mind. I probably would have preferred to see that moment for him, especially to see sort of what causes him to turn around. We know it happened and we knew it had to happen. So it's okay. What this does is he embraces death. And so he transforms his failure into a source of wisdom and power. And then just like Elora does with Kit, he immediately passes that knowledge, that wisdom on to Elora and tells her, no, dude, embrace your mistakes. These are important. These are part of you. This is how you win. The greatest teacher failure is.
Yeah.
So he does. He passes on the elixir to her. He draws life from death, which is what the crone does in order to become a mage. And now he is fully a mage at the height of his power. And I love it.
And typically in Star Wars, when a crone becomes a mage, they turn into a force ghost. So that's really important to differentiate that he is allowed to actually live, which is really cool. Yep. Like other mages that we have seen or transformations, you'll probably remember the Gandalf, "You shall not pass," to the Balrog. That's a moment where he was transformed into a mage, died, and then came back as Gandalf the White.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, it's powerful when you actually see it on screen. So
it is. It's very cool. And the important thing to note for the mage is that their final journey is going to be about letting go. It's about what is the world that I will leave behind to those who come after me, and how can I let them go? And so that's what we'll see next. And we'll, again, more detail on the live stream, but I'm really excited to see them tell that story.
It's amazing. All right.
So great.
You ready to move on to mythic inspirations, parallels, and themes?
Let's do it.
All right. So the first one I actually want to talk about is a really important one, which actually was brought up by my husband when we were watching. And he said, why do they go to the underworld so many times in this show? And I actually thought it was a really great question. It was a little sarcastic because he understood. He understands the symbolism. He's like, oh yeah, they're in a cave. Oh yeah, they're in a forest. Oh hey, they're on a night sea journey. Forests, caves, mines, oh my. So why do we journey multiple times? Well, we as ourselves as people journey multiple times. And in story that's in a movie or even in a show, sometimes you can't show that. You can't show that you're going through multiple journeys and transformations, ego deaths and transformations into new archetypes, or that you've learned lessons. Well, I actually have this great Joseph Campbell clip that I want to play just now. So
what you're saying is, if there are not dragons out there, and there may not be...
The real dragon is in you.
And what is that real dragon?
That's your ego holding you in.
What's my ego?
What I want, what I believe, what I can do, what I think I love, and all that. What I regard as the aim of my life and so forth. It might be too small. It might be that which pins you down. And if it's simply that of doing what the environment tells you to do, it certainly is pinning you down. And so the environment is your dragon as it reflects within yourself.
How do I slay?
How do you?
Slay that dragon in me. What's the journey I have to make, you have to make, each of us has to make? You talk about something called the soul's high adventure.
My general formula for my students is follow your bliss. I mean, find where it is and don't be afraid to follow it.
Can my bliss be my life's love or my life's work? Is it my work or my life?
Well, if the work that you're doing is the work that you chose to do because you are enjoying it, that's it. But if you think, oh, gee, I couldn't do that, you know, that's your dragon that's locking you in. Oh, no, I couldn't be a writer. Oh, no, I couldn't do what so-and-so is doing.
Unlike the classical heroes, we're not going on our journey to save the world, but to save ourselves.
And in doing that, you save the world. I mean, you do. The influence of a vital person vitalizes. There's no doubt about it. The world is a wasteland. People have the notion of saving the world by shifting it around and changing the rules and so forth. And no, any world is a living world if it's alive. And the thing is to bring it to life. And the way to bring it to life is to find in your own case where your life is and be alive yourself, it seems to me.
And Joseph Campbell is talking about following your bliss and that you're going into the unknown, right? You're going into the unknown to understand these things. And that's how we transform into whole people. Sometimes new things pop up along the way and we need to journey again. We need to work with those shadows. It's like housekeeping, and our community helps us. It, just as we were talking about in Maiden to Mage, the knowledge, the secret knowledge was transferred from Willow understanding his place in the universe to Alora to Kit. Isn't that wonderful? I also want to talk about sort of this interconnectedness through a quote that is actually George Lucas talking. I'm trying to remember exactly where it is. I'll include the clip link in the liner notes, but I think he's talking at an awards ceremony or some sort of Hollywood association, and he is talking about finding joy. And this is the version of Joseph Campbell's Follow Your Bliss. And I like to call it seeking joy because it's an active practice, right? And this is the secret. And there's so many words that are used in this clip that I actually think are quite familiar in this episode. And I think it's important to listen to this too. So here we go.
You live in two worlds here. Happiness is pleasure, and happiness is joy. It can be either one. You add them up and it sort of falls under the uber category of happiness. Pleasure is short-lived. It lasts an hour, lasts a minute, lasts a month. And and it peaks and then goes down. It peaks very high. But the next time you want to get that same peak, you have to do it twice as much. It's like drugs. You have to keep doing it because it insulates itself, no matter what it is, whether you're shopping, whether you're, engaged in any other kind of pleasure. That all has the same quality about it. On the other hand is joy, and joy is a thing that doesn't go as high as pleasure in terms of your emotional reaction, but it stays with you. Joy is something you can recall. Pleasure, you can't. So the secret is that even though it's not as intense as the pleasure, the joy will last you a lot longer. And people who get the pleasure, they keep saying, well, if I can just get richer and get more cars, you'll never relive the moment you got your first car. That's it. That's the highest peak. Yes, you can get 3 Ferraris and a new Gulfstream jet, and maybe you'll get close. But you have to keep going, and eventually you run out. You just can't do it. It doesn't work. So if you're trying to sustain that level of peak pleasure, you're doomed. It's a very American idea, but it just can't happen. You just let it go. Peak, great. Pleasure is fun. It's great. But you can't keep it going forever. Just accept the fact that it's here and it's gone. And maybe again it'll come back and you'll get to do it again. Joy lasts forever. Pleasure is purely self-centered. It's all about your pleasure. It's about you. It's a selfish, self-centered emotion that's created by a self-centered motive of greed. Joy is compassion. Joy is giving yourself to somebody else or something else. And it's a kind of thing that is, in its subtlety and lowness, much more powerful than pleasure. If you get hung up on pleasure, you're doomed. If you pursue joy, you will find everlasting happiness.
If you're seeking pleasure or if you're seeking joy. So I want you to just keep this in your mind as we talk through the rest of the episode. They're really important, fundamental ideas to Star Wars, Willow, and What the Force. What do you think, Missy?
I think it's cool. And the part that I always come back to is the result of alchemical union in mythology is joy. Specifically in the tale of Cupid and Psyche, which is our prototypical lost husband tale. When they are married and their child is born, their
Love
child
and soul combining together.
Yes. Their child is named Voluptas, which can be interpreted as pleasure, but many, many people actually translate it as joy. Mm-hmm. And so love and soul equals joy.
And isn't that Willow?
Yep. I love it.
The community we have found is just joy. The experience of watching the show is just joy. So everybody, as you're listening to this podcast and as you're going about your daily life, please seek joy. All right. The second thing we want to talk about is, we didn't really talk about, we let other smart people do the talking before, but let's talk about the heroine's journey. And we're going to be very brief. We're going to call out some of the stages of the heroine's journey and what they mean throughout this episode. The heroine's journey was originally published as The Heroine's Journey, The Women's Quest for Wholeness by Maureen Murdoch, as a response to Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey or Adventurer's Journey or The Hero with a Thousand Faces, as Maureen Murdoch was a psychologist who many found that the journey spoke to many of her femme patients, but it didn't fully speak to their interpretation of the world. And so what's really, really important is that all of us, because of the society that we live in, have missing feminine and wounded masculine within us. And in any patriarchal society, you will experience this regardless of your gender or your gender orientation. And the key is that this gives us a framework to talk about story and also our own experiences, that we're questing to discover those aspects, those feminine aspects of ourselves that are missing, and to heal the wounded aspects that are wounded, and thus become more integrated and whole individuals within ourselves. And that's important. And we're going to see stages from the heroine's journey inside of this, like identification with the masculine, illusory boon of success, descent into the goddess, and healing the wounded masculine.
Yeah. And I think that that's actually a really good segue into the Lost Bride and Lost Husband tales because
Like my
they
favorite.
actually fit. I know, I'm so excited. But they actually fit so perfectly into the heroine's journey because, as Marie Claire mentioned, in every person who is in a patriarchal society, and even the society itself, so again, the micro macro level, this happens in individuals and this happens on a societal level, you have your missing feminine and your wounded masculine. Well, what do you need to do with those? You need to find your missing feminine. You need to discover that feminine power. So what is that? That's a lost bride quest. And then, okay, well, now you found your lost bride, you found your missing feminine, and you've claimed that power, but you still have the wounded masculine over here. So what do you need to do? Well, now you need to go on your search for the lost husband and you need to heal him. You need to heal that wounded masculine. And that is the format that many myths take. So this is what I want to talk about as a framework for today's episode, because it's huge throughout the episode.
We're probably going to be calling it out quite a bit, actually. Yeah.
We are. So I'm just giving kind of high level framework. And I'm going to refer to a few specific myths for everyone to just be familiar with. So the first part being the Lost Bride tale. You got to discover the feminine power. So the prototypical Lost Bride tale is Orpheus and Eurydice. Most people are familiar with this. Orpheus goes to the underworld to find Eurydice. Most of these end in failure. They typically do not result in the recovery of the lost bride. The successful variation of this tale is Sleeping Beauty, in which she's not dead, she's just asleep, and you have to go wake her up. And that is what season 1 of Willow is for Elora Danan. We are waking up that hidden goddess, the sleeping goddess, you might say. And we know this because one of her names is Brunhild, who is also a sleeping beauty.
Yes.
She has been sleeping and must be awakened. She has, in this story, 3 princes who awaken her. It's not who you think. The first prince who awakens her is Willow, who tells her her true name. The second prince who awakens her is Graydon, who acknowledges her true identity and expresses his faith in her. And that is what inspires her to first grow the berry bush and begin actually practicing magic. And then the last prince is Kit, who's always pushing her when she gives up and expressing faith in her and protecting her so that she can come into the fullness of her power as the goddess. So season 1, Lost Bride, Sleeping Beauty. Elora has discovered her power as the goddess. She has found the missing feminine. Moving on. Sometimes when the lost bride awakens, the husband is then lost. This typically happens because of a broken taboo, and specifically in the case of lost husbands, it's usually because the bride saw her husband for who he truly was. Maybe she saw him without his animal skin on, or maybe she saw him in the light when she was not allowed to see him in the light of day. You know, maybe she brought out a candle and could finally see who he really was. Whatever. But the point is, she sees him for who he truly is. And for whatever reason, this either causes him to flee or fall under a curse or
be hurt,
or be captured or be wounded. Right. Any number of these things.
Transformed into an animal, like the black bull of Norway. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So then he is lost and she must retrieve him. There's a couple of reasons that this is necessary, aside from obviously the psychological aspect that we mentioned of healing the wounded masculine. It's also that in a partnership, she needs a worthy partner who is her equal, so he must be healed. And then secondly, this is a case where she's under patriarchy. So in order to be an equal to her mate, she must choose him. This is about her desire and her agency. It's her choice. She's not the prize for the hero. She's actually going out and saying, I want this one.
Yeah.
This is very, very important in a lost husband story. And in my opinion, the best example of this type of tale is the Ninth Captain's Tale, which is from Arabian Nights. It's a Sleeping Beauty story. She is marked from birth as someone who is going to fall under this curse of getting a piece of flax in her skin and falling asleep. And so she does, and that happens. And then he finds the flax, takes it out, wakes her up. And they're in love with each other, and it's great. But he keeps disappearing, and she doesn't know why. So she one day follows him, and when she catches him off doing whatever he's doing, he's like, "Oh, you don't really love me," and he bails. And so then she finds a magic ring and transforms herself into a false bride to win him back. It makes him sick with desire. And then when he says, "How can I win you?" she insists that he pretend to be dead and wrap himself in 7 shrouds, which she then unwraps and resurrects him, and they live happily ever after.
There's so much Isis and Osiris in that. And then there's a lot of Selene and Endymion in that.
Yep.
And wow, there's a lot of motifs that are super similar. I've never heard that tale before. So wow.
I love it.
I'm going to read it.
It's so good. I highly recommend it. The reason that I bring this up is because after the bride awakens and sees her husband for who he truly is, and he flees or is cursed again, whatever, in order to win him back, requires him to be her equal in death as well as life. She needs him to die for her. He needs to go to the underworld, work out his problems, and then she will unwrap him and bring him back. And he will be hers.
And he will be whole because he has integrated all of the shadows and done all of his, we got Robert Bly talking about going to the cabin and canoeing and writing poetry.
Right.
Essentially.
So this is the whole thing, is that Graydon never ate his shadow.
No, he didn't. Let's talk about that.
He never did.
That wasn't me. I wasn't the Lich. I didn't kill my brother.
Yeah, he just never dealt with his issues. And so, sorry, but he had to go to the underworld and he has to go confront that stuff. And it's probably going to get worse before it gets better, because he has to completely go through the full death cycle in order to be resurrected as the full and equal partner. And so, yeah.
Yep. He's got a lot of work to do, and that's probably going to involve falling to the dark side, if there is a term like that in Willow. But yes, he will be part of the Children of the Wyrm.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So, and then the last thing I will mention before we wrap up on this topic is, remember what I said way back in like our episode 1 and 2 analysis about Snow Queen and how it's basically baby's first lost husband?
Right.
It did happen with Eric,
yep.
But they went with not the romantic interpretation, but the sibling interpretation, because it was Kit rescuing Eric. And again, as I mentioned, the romance is not textual in that story. You can read it as Gerda and Kay being brother and sister, or I guess I got the backwards, sister and brother. And so that is what happened, is that he was the sort of cursed brother spirited away by the sorceress. And then and in the story, again, he gets like a cursed mirror shard in his eye and his heart that makes him, not see the people who love him, and he hates everything. He thinks it's all terrible. Just like, when Eric says like, "Oh yeah, you're stubbornly committed to your perspective." Like he can't see things her way anymore because he's been poisoned by the crone. And so it's very similar. And ultimately the way that he is saved is she journeys to find him, holds him, and cries. And this washes the shards of the cursed mirror from his eye and heart. And he sees her again and is reborn, which is exactly what happens.
Why is this show so good?
I know. So anyway, so it's great. I'm obsessed. They just did all my favorite things. And I'm sorry, everyone, for going on so long about fairy tales, but it was so wonderful.
No, it's super interesting and also like deeply psychological to approach these things from a story and metaphoric perspective. All right, we have one last mythic inspiration / thematic parallel. All right, we need to talk about the Wyrm, which presented itself as a literal giant earthworm beneath the surface of the world in a hellscape. All right, let's talk about real worms for a second, and I'll get to where I'm going, but I kind of want to talk about some stuff. So they live in the dark. They die if they're exposed to light. They are also hermaphrodites, so they have both male and female sex organs, and to reproduce, they must be paired with a worm that can be the opposite for them. So, okay, this is super interesting. There's a lot of things going on in this. There is worm symbolism on the first page of the chapter 8. On the page that starts, there's actually a worm, or the worm. It is the worm with the picture of Eric right next to it. And because of our amazing Discord, we found out what actually it says. So it says, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown. You can freak out, Missy. I see you silently trying to...
I'm trying to... See, you guys don't understand. At one point, Marie Claire told me that screaming is really bad for like the microphones and the editing. And so I try to be good, but seriously, I'm sitting here freaking out because this is so cool.
This is H.P. Lovecraft, right? So of course it's a Cthulhu mythos quote, but let's talk about the unknown. So this is paired with the worm on that front page. The worm is the unknown. In a Joseph Campbellian sense, the unknown is the underworld. It is the subconscious. It is the place that you go to take your shadows and integrate them into yourself and be reborn so that you can transform and bring the elixir back to the world. In one of the first episodes, I think it's the second episode, what is the worm? Somebody asked Borman, and he's like, it is the darkness that swallows. It is the gales. It is all of these things. So it's all of the darkness in the world and within ourselves. This is literally what Campbell talks about as the collective unconscious darkness and also the darkness within ourselves. It's both. It is the micro and the macro. So what do we know? What have we learned in this episode? The worm is actually a giant thing. It is both femme and masculine together. And that brings out a lot of the symbolism that we see associated with it, which is milk. We see yonic symbols all over the place, so keyholes, and the platform with the worm all wrapped around it. In addition to, it is gendered male the entire time, right? So they call it he a lot, but it's both, right? And
yes.
it is what you need to see in the moment that you need to see it to confront your own darkness. And so the worm is not only this massive thing that is the darkness in the world, it is also the darkness in yourself. And it is also the people that are trapped in the unknown, in the underworld, who have accepted the worm's truth as truth. And so this brings me to my giant thesis that I've been meaning to talk about for a long time, that all villains are just heroes stuck in the underworld.
Yes, I love it. And that's amazing too, because by the end of this episode, there's actually no distinction between Lily, the crone, and the worm. They really are one and the same by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because, again, it's the whole point isn't that this is, a femme or masc entity. It is that it is all darkness, all shadows together. So basically what you're saying is the worm is the dark side.
Yes. The worm is the dark side in Willow. Yeah. I mean, we've said that. We knew that. We knew this on a fundamental level in ourselves. You can see it, right? The darkness that swallows. Yes, of course. It is all darkness in the world. But it gives us something to personify. But I think that it's also important to take that step back and understand that it's more complex, micro, macro, and also metaphorical. Yeah. And that also means ... Graydon, if he accepts the offer at the end of the episode, we'll get to that when we get to that.
Teasers.
I'm terrible. All right. Let's get into the episode.
All right, finally, guys, we're actually going to talk about the episode. Very exciting.
Thank you for sticking with us.
We promise all of this will come up again as we go through.
All right. Let's talk about the children of the Wyrm. So the chapter opens, it's chapter 8. On the pages, actually, you can read each of them, and the Discord is actually collecting them. I love them so much. But silence, stillness, heart-stopping dread. Neither Kit nor Alora could move a muscle. All they could do was gaze across the wind-swept ... All right, so Alora and Kit face Eric as he comes out of the building, and suddenly the Gales are behind them. And I did want to call out that this is the first time that I was able to actually spot this, but Tom from the Discord, again, these smart people, Kit is wearing a jade necklace.
Really?
And has been since the first episode when they left on their adventure.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
But you can really see it. So she's
That's
like,
so cool.
Her hero's heart is on display, and it is jade.
Oh,
Literally jade.
oh, makes me so happy.
Some Tanthamor just off the bat. Eric is in a full leather costume, so this plays up this lost husband motif where often they are wearing some sort of animal skin. The leather is made out of hexagons, which have 6 sides. There is 6 buckles on each of his arms, i.e. blood of the 6. 6s are everywhere. And he tries to disarm them in a way by being friendly and kind of one of those guys.
But in a very creepy way. Yeah.
Guys, you're here. This is
Immediately.
so great. What a wonderful treat. And he
Yeah.
hugs
What
Kit.
you must have been through to get here and everything. And she just looks kind of dumbfounded and horrified and nervous, like what's going on?
And then he hugs Alora and he holds her back and looks at her and says, "We needed this time apart, Alora." Oh my goodness. And she's like, "What?"
Yeah.
The two of them almost play like this hot potato, like not wanting to deal with him. Like, you.
So this is the first place. This is the first place where I think we see a ton of mirroring in this episode, like a lot of mirroring, twinning, however you want to call it. And specifically, I believe that in this scene, and frankly throughout the entire episode, really, Kit and Alora function like a two-headed creature.
Like an. Is it an obelisk?
I don't remember, but I'm just going to call them a two-headed creature. But the point is that they function that way because, especially in this scene and then the scene that immediately follows it, they are back to back and they keep switching places, or Eric is rotating around them. But either way, he keeps passing from one to the other. And sometimes they talk to one another, which feels very much as like a person talking to themselves, almost in a way. Kind of leaning into this idea that they are those divine twins that we mentioned last episode. And another thing I want to mention is that there really isn't a distinction between the mythical spouse and the mythical sibling to a great extent. In fact, sometimes they're actually the same person.
Isis and Osiris. Yeah.
Isis and Osiris, they're brother and sister and husband and wife. So the point is that it really don't differ that much. And so the fact that they are there as Eric's ostensible bride and his sister, they're there as the same entity, as the same person. They serve the same purpose to him, at least in these scenes, not every scene, but at least in these scenes, prior to them actually separating. Because of course the point comes where they are physically separated, but up to that point, they're always kind of right next to each other, right together. So it's really important to kind of watch that, the way they keep switching places and function like that two-headed creature.
And I absolutely loved how supportive they were of each other. Like,
So
you're doing
funny.
really good because like she's like trying to figure out the, Morta's blood to raise the harbinger. You're doing really good.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Like, they're
I love
so
that.
cute. They're so
It's
cute
adorable.
together.
I love that.
I love them. But like, they keep on doing this switching, rotating thing. And instantly we get this very know-it-all patriarchal perspective. It's done, I think, very subtly, but
I agree.
He's like, that's right. You're always so stubbornly committed to your own point of view. Eric says that. And it's like, it's, have you not heard this before, Missy, as a woman?
Yeah. But even like the way that he says that he's her big brother. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's a joke, right? Because she's like, oh yeah, by like a minute. But the point is, he's emphasizing his dominance over her.
Yeah. And this really makes me think of like bell hooks and the dominator culture, which includes the patriarchy. And like whenever you are attempting to dominate others, you are leaning into the dominator culture.
And he starts talking about the crone and praising her. And he uses very similar language to describe her that he used to describe Dove all the way back in episode 1 when he was trying to explain his attraction to her to Kit. And, he calls her ineffable and all these other things.
Yeah.
Well, then he talks about the crone and he says, oh, she's amazing, fascinating, but also really intense. And it's almost identical to how he described Elora Dove in that first episode.
Exactly. This really reminded me of how people talk about people who they've engaged in a cult of personality with.
Yes. Right? And that's important because much later we're going to really go into what happens with Eric. And I think that there are going to be some people that are not going to like us tying that back to real world scenarios because it gets into some very uncomfortable spaces about people that have been brainwashed and indoctrinated. And obviously that's not as simple an issue in reality as it is in mythology, but that doesn't make the story and the lessons any less true.
Yeah, that's what goes on in these episodes of Willow. There's a lot of dense storytelling and it cuts to the chase a lot. It doesn't have a lot of like time to waste. And so it uses every moment to say something.
Yep.
We cut to Borman stopping Jade and Graydon from jumping off of the ledge. They were just ready to go. And he's like, wait. Have you ever heard the phrase, if your paramour jumps off the edge of the world, wait and think for 1 second before you follow her? And I love that it applies to both of them. It's so good.
I love that.
And Jade's like, no, this is a leap of faith. Didn't you say this is the way? And Willow just absolutely denial of the call here.
Yep.
It could be just that, like, they're the only ones who were supposed to go. They're supposed to go in here alone. And as you heard Joseph Campbell talk, no, you're not really. It's okay to bring people on your adventures into the underworld. It's really okay.
And sometimes your journey is to help other people on their journey. And especially crones and mages, that is most of what they experience is mentoring maidens, heroes, queens, and kings.
Yep. Thinking of Merlin.
Yep.
Yep. And Jade and Graydon still want to go. And so Willow starts to drop truth bombs. And there's just like a really important piece of lore that I need to call out, because whenever Willow drops knowledge of history, it's usually true in some way. Mad Mardigan chose to fight the Wyrm from within. Okay. Can we talk about that just for a quick?
Yes, please.
Quick moment. So he is inside of the Wyrm currently, physically. He's in there and he's in the underworld, and he is metaphorically dead, but that's okay.
Yes. Fun fact, Mad Mardigan is also a crone at the moment. If he ever reappears in a future season, he will be a mage. Just saying.
Yeah.
So.
And, he chose Kit as Alora's protector. And Jade's like, but I protect Kit. And of course, Willow being savage, she's like, because you love her.
Yeah. And Jade admits it. Yeah. When you love someone, you jump off the edge of the world to go get to them.
Yes, you do. And Jade jumps.
Yep. Good girl.
Good girl. You love her. And Willow to Graydon, I'm proud of you. You're on your way to becoming a great sorcerer and even a better man. Okay, we needed to hear this before his inevitable fall to the dark side. Yes, it is inevitable. I'm so sorry. But yes, it's so good. And Graydon replies back, we'll see each other again.
Right. And both of these statements are so important. Willow saying, you'll be a great sorcerer and a great man. And Graydon saying, we'll see each other again. Because as we've said all the way back in our analysis
Willow
of the
movie.
film itself, this story does not lie to you. It will not lie to you. No, this is the truth. So we know that these are promises that will be delivered on.
Mm-hmm. And Borman instantly is like, yep, rejecting the call. You and me tonight, Willie. Willow and Borman, the great voyage home. I love this so much. And Willow immediately challenges Borman because that's still his job as the crone, is to help these heroes, be a guide, right? Help protect the kids. But this is important because he's kind of almost kicking the kids out of all of the nest. Like, fly, be free. It's easy, Borman. All you have to do is ask yourself what you really love and then give yourself to it as long as you can. So this is the follow your bliss. This is finding your joy. This is seeking your joy. This is the theme, right? This is how you know that you're following the right direction. And although Borman sort of doesn't want to confront that, he's like, no, that's not me. No one's buying it, Borman. The truth is you're loyal, dedicated, and strong. Mad Mardigan would have, I don't want to start crying. And he runs off the waterfall.
and Willow says, look after them. Oh my gosh. I know, it's so great. But this is the thing. He has handed his young charges over to Borman, the queen, who will now protect them.
And the Willow theme music plays and we all cry.
I know.
Oh, it was such a good scene. And it was so important from a Mythic and from just I want to be a good person and I want to make good decisions and I want to find joy. Like, you could write essays, you could write books on this moment.
We got to see every person confront the leap of faith into death and give their reasons for why they were doing it. Like, that's crazy. Mm-hmm. All these characters just were like, I'm going to do this and here's why. That's so cool. And that's why, as we've said, or we should be saying here, the alternate theme of this episode is subtext. What's that?
What is this show? Subtext doesn't exist.
Yeah. Subtext is for the weak. It's like, seriously, they just don't. Everything's in your face. And frankly, I love that. I think it's fantastic.
I think we kind of needed to go back to a place where subtext doesn't exist. So,
well, and frankly, that is what fairy tales are. Fairy tales are not, complex where you should have to, dig to understand. It should all be there in your face. The Wicked Witch is the Wicked Witch, that type of thing, mm-hmm. It's right up there. And so I appreciate that it's very direct and true to its roots.
We have Eric bring them into the temple because he has convinced them that, this is the only way. We just need to have a conversation and then she'll let you go. It's never just like that. And he talks about how he let go of his fear and now he is truly free from things and thus powerful. I have thoughts on that, but I'm not going to talk about it right now. I actually think it was just that he let go of his hair.
Your fear was not contained in your hair, Eric. Sorry.
Yes, it was in your hair. And then he goes on to talk about, everyone's like, is that the goo? Is that the goo we've been seeing everywhere? And, it's vermiscus. And he refers to it as mother's milk.
Yes. I could not believe it when I saw this for the first time. I was like, did they just put that in there? They did. All right. So I'm going to read the quote and then I'm going to talk about why it kind of blew my mind a little bit. He says, a mother gives birth. Her body makes milk for the child. It's nourishment, referring to the vermiscus. It's the part of himself that he gives to us. Now, if any of you out there thought, this sounds a little bit like Sunday school. Yes, you're correct. That's exactly what that sounded like. And I think that was purposeful. This is actually a pretty direct theological reference. Specifically, we're talking here about Our Lady of La Leche. I'm probably saying that wrong. La Leche.
Yeah.
So bad at this, guys. But the point is that this is the lactating Madonna. She is breastfeeding the infant Christ. And in this instance, Mary's life-giving milk is compared directly to Christ's life-giving blood.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're doing here is they're saying that the worm is being presented as an in-world antichrist who is offering dark mass with his blood.
It is worm blood.
You take in his blood, his mother's milk, and you become one with him. You become part of him.
And so the children of the worm is a reference to like children of God, but children of the anti-God.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's incredible that they did that.
There is a Cthulhu mythos parallel in this, which is Shub-Niggurath. I call her Shubsy. Her milk has many properties and mutates those who drink it into fierce creatures. And she is sometimes the lover of Hastur.
Ah! Oh, no!
Yeah, so that's a thing.
Nope, here we go.
And we have the crone come out of the birth canal looking place.
Everything in this entire scene is super, super, super sex focused.
Yeah. Yonic symbols everywhere, birth canals.
Heck yeah.
She approaches and she is incredibly hot, crone, in her red dress. Very, like, her name in the credits is Lily, which I think is a reference to Lilith, right? The first tempter in the Bible. But she's never actually called Lily in the text, which is really interesting. And so Kit, being Kit, who just says it like it is, "You're the crone!"
Yeah. But there are other things about Lily here that I think work regardless of what direction you come at it. So Lilith makes sense to me, but also if it were to refer to the flower, red lilies specifically symbolize passion, fertility, motherhood, and eternal love. Assyrian and Babylonian cultures associated red lilies specifically with Ishtar, who was a fertility goddess. And also in Greek mythology, lilies bloomed from Hera's breast milk.
So cool. And I love her dress is like a lily. Like it looks flower-like.
And the way that it's blooming also, I think, is further Ionic in appearance. Yeah. I think definitely if you look at the shape of it, for sure. The way that it opens, so to speak, it definitely looks like that. Her earrings or hair ornaments, I can't tell which it is. They look like drops of blood.
Yeah, and there's 6 on each side.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's the blood of the 6 of her collection, right? And
so
they
cool.
kind of hang from her ears. So
yeah, it's hard to tell. It was hard to tell if it was ears or hair ornament, but either way, it's just hanging there. And yeah, definitely. So the point is that all of this and the set, of course, and everything, very, very deliberate, everything. And it works from all these different angles.
We need to set her free. She is the harbinger. Okay. Eric, fine. Whatever you've bought into your girlfriend's cult. Fine. All right. So I'm trying to figure out, and let's just do a little bit of an aside. I think it would be nice to just talk this through just a tiny amount, which is she hasn't been able to be free, quote unquote, before this. So what's preventing her from being free?
I mean, all I can say is it would have to be her association with the worm. She's not free as long as she's serving the worm.
But she needs to be set free because she is the harbinger so that they can bring about this glorious future.
But what does freedom mean in this instance?
Yeah, it's a good question. I just want to put a pin in that. I just because I think there's some discussion that we need to have throughout this episode and be like, how does the worm actually get what it wants? Or does it even really know what it wants?
I mean, it comes back to the question of what harbinger actually means.
Yeah. I think when you are the harbinger, you are the worm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and that's what what was said before about how, there really isn't a distinction between the crone and the worm by the end of the episode. Well, she serves him, therefore she is him.
Yeah, exactly. Kit and Allura have this amazing little mirroring situation. This is obviously a trap. Well, Eric has always been gullible. I convinced him he had Bugenhagen's disease.
He needed to drink a lot of vinegar.
Yeah. Essentially, like, poor Eric Himbo will just kind of drink anything anybody gives him.
Although I feel bad because, like, you could see him resisting so valiantly in the last episode. It just didn't quite make it. But he also, he really is presented as, a baby. Later on, Allura calls him naive. Mm-hmm. So he's gullible, he's naive, he's this, he's that. And yet they have total faith that he's going to come out of this and that he can come back to them at the end of the episode. So he really is presented as a child to a great extent. And it's just heartbreaking and adorable. And I'm just kind of like, oh, I love him, my baby Himbo. He's such a sweetie. We got to take care of him.
And so they approach the gateway, and of course it's a threshold. Obviously it is a threshold. And the wall that they approach, to me, I took many screenshots of it. It literally looks like neurons and dendrites and axon tails of the brain and how our neurons look when they're under a microscope. So they are entering into the Wyrm's brain.
Yep.
The subconscious of the world. They are entering into the collective unconscious of the world.
So cool.
What is this show?
I love that. What is this show?
Everyone's choice is their own. Only you can know what it is. So our hot crone basically is saying, like some sort of world between worlds in Star Wars, it's going to appear to you the way that you need to see it. Because it's going to be your own specific temptation that was built for you. Interesting.
I love this kind of stuff. This is my favorite kind of thing.
Deeply psychological, right?
Yes.
Deeply. We cut to the trio in the city. They're hiding in the dust. Or no, they're coming out of the water. Sorry.
Yeah, they're coming out of the water because we get our iconic bisexual Borman moment.
Yeah. And he offers to kiss everybody. And yes, bye King.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in case you didn't hear it the first time, he repeats it. He wants to make sure you heard him.
I can't believe you guys don't want to make out. We could have been making out. But he offers to take them under his wing and show them how to sneak into an undead city because he is now acting like a queen. And we do see the storm is coming on the edge of the city, which adds a sense of urgency to the situation. Yeah. Allura and Kit, go through the gateway. Allura offered to go alone originally. Okay, let's talk about this vision that they see when they get through the door. The gateway is a beautiful courtyard. Obviously, it's Tirzleen. There's lots of Tirzleen guards, fancy dressed people, courtesans, a party that Allura would have never been welcome to previously.
Yeah.
And Sorsha walks up. And I was like, is this like a faux lap of the goddess situation? And actually, my good friend Susan actually messaged me and said that there is especially some Indian mythology that actually has a dark lap of the goddess. So
yes.
And the dark lap of the goddess is entirely temptation.
Yeah. Oh, I just thought all of the deliberate parallels calling back to episode 4 was just really fascinating in this whole sequence. 4 and 5. Well,
wait, Wildwood?
Yeah, no, you're right. Because I was thinking, okay, so we were talking about there were scenes last episode which call back to 4 and scenes this episode which call back to 5. I got confused. Yes, 5.
5. Okay. And they meet Sorsha, and she tries to convince Kit of her realness. So she has her touch her face and isn't this my touch? And just so the Wyrm is part of the world, and thus it will feel real because this is also part of the world, if that makes sense. To Allura, she apologizes. And in so many ways, I think that what the Wyrm wants Allura to do is sort of just give up her power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, it's willing to give her what it thinks she wants, what she thought she wanted, so that she will not stand against him. I will say I thought that this was interesting because it was another example of Allura and Kit being this sort of two-headed creature, especially in the way that Sorsha responds to them, turning from one to the other in the middle of what she's saying to them, such that for a moment, you can't tell which one she's talking to. Especially when she says, my dear sweet girl. She's talking to Kit. She was talking to Kit a second ago. Or, oh, wait, no, now she's talking to Allura. So, you know, again, this idea that Kit and Allura are one in this episode. Throughout this episode, they are. But we're coming up to the moment now where they are actively separated.
Yeah,
Because now,
they have to deal with two separate sort of challenges.
Yes.
In tests, trials, right?
Yes, exactly.
Eric approaches and, you know, he's like, isn't it beautiful? And she's like, it's a beautiful lie. Oh, that's okay. It can be anything you want. It's our wedding. Just straight to the decision point. It's like a speed run. It's like cut to the chase every single moment in this show. It's great.
Yeah, there's no wasted time in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, just to add drama, we cut back to Boorman is hiding them, and this is what we called out earlier as his like mother duck moment.
Yes, so funny.
And Graydon and Jade call him a dumbass.
Yeah, they're just like, you know, sorry, buddy, we're not doing this. And they just get up and walk up to the front door.
Walk up to the front door, and they're trying to unlock it. Boorman uses his cleaver, and they're like, Graydon, you're a sorcerer. And he's like, oh, right, I'm a sorcerer.
Yeah, I love that so much. And so then he starts trying to open the door, and, you know, like now, like the dust storm is coming, and they're asking if he can hurry up. And he's like, well, this is really hard magic. He's like trying to tell them it's really hard to do. And it's, you know, coming closer and closer, and it turns them to stone.
This is so interesting.
Yeah.
I don't even know really what this was about. I had no ideas. Like, I was just like, I guess it was just a way to like say they were outmatched and thus needed their mage.
I think there's multiple things going on. I think they're outmatched and needed their mage. I think that when you see the dust storm approach, it's a mouth. It's a face with an open mouth. It consumes them.
Right.
We also know
consumption.
Consumption motif. We also know that this city, even though there's dust floating around and everything, specifically it's ash. So I kind of felt like they were turned into pillars of ash. So yes, I mean, Boorman says they were turned to stone, but really also ash because, again, consumption. And, you know, ultimately being turned to stone, it's death. And it's specifically the type of death that it arrests progress, and it arrests the life-death life cycle, because instead of being broken down to bones and then reborn, you're simply frozen. So you're just stuck in a death state until the otherworldly powers release you. So at this point, there is nothing that could possibly release them from their stone death other than the mage.
Yeah. This reminded me of when, again, the Balrog attacked the hobbits in the Fellowship, and Gandalf had to intervene. Like, the only choice was for the mage to show up and be the mage. We cut back to the Wyrm wedding space, and Kit and Sorsha are having their conversation, and Sorsha apologizes for being so hard on Kit and demanding that you know, she tried to mold her into everything she thought she had to be, what, you know, Kit had to be, because it's what she had to be, you know, generational trauma, but it's fake. This is all fake. Sorsha's apologizing for generational trauma that, well, this Sorsha is apologizing in a way for the generational trauma that she had given Kit, but it's not real, right? Like,
well,
you know?
okay. So
or is it real? I don't know.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I have the same thing in my notes. My notes say, is this genuine? Because there are aspects of it that sound like what Kit would actually need to hear and what Saoirse would need to say. But here's the key, is she doesn't offer Kit the wisdom to work through this trauma on her own in a healing way. She offers her an escape from it, an undo button. She wants her to you can go off and live your life and not worry about any of this.
This is suggesting you revert. You take, responsibility as a chain that weighs you down. Some people are not built for it. So she's basically saying, Kit, you don't deserve to go on the adventure that has been sort of showed up in front of you and you have accepted. You deserve to basically not be a hero of this story.
And remember, she's a hero at this point. She's a hero at this point. So what Saoirse is saying by saying responsibility is not for you is saying you will never be a queen.
And at this point, like, Kit can't go back to being a damsel. Like, I hate to say it that way, but like a damsel and a maiden, like the responsibility is already something that she has accepted by jumping off of the waterfall. She views herself at least as somebody who's willing to walk into an undead city with her partner Alora in this moment.
And the thing is, the only way she could truly revert to maiden would be to abandon Alora, which is exactly what the Wyrm wants her to do, which is why she's saying this and why she's saying you can go off and have your own adventure with anyone you want. And how horrible to dangle in front of her soulmate, Jade, and pit her against Alora, to whom she is also tied in a different way. How insidious is that?
I liked how Jade looked like so innocent.
So beautiful too. Stunning.
Yeah.
Just gorgeous.
Like, do you want to finish talking about Saoirse and Jade before we talk about Eric and Alora? Because there's also like the moment when Mad Mardigan talks to Kit.
I have a lot to say about Mad Mardigan. So I don't know. Do we want to do that first?
Yeah, my only last comment is Kit has grown so far beyond the set off on your great adventure that awaits you. She's already on that adventure and she knows it deep within herself. She is already with the person that she loves. She's so far. It's like the Wyrm is reading her diary from like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
It's like so weird.
But and this is where, okay, and it'll be interesting to talk about this, but when we get to the conversation about the actual wedding scene and Alora's regression, I want to call back to this because, as we've said before, it is quite difficult to talk about this story without considering the commentary I might be making about the sequel trilogy. And we've said often that, Ray regressed. Ray had been through a number of transformations, and then they took her right back to the beginning of her story. And what we're seeing here is that being offered to both Kit and Alora, and they both reject it. And as the Crone says, they are willing to choose pain over pleasure rather than live the lie, rather than regress.
Yeah.
And that is so huge and so important. It's this idea that they will not return to maidenhood and they will not regress and be under the power of another person or system.
And growing is painful. Being on your own is painful. And it's much easier to experience pleasure as a child. Oof, it's hard. We have the amazing moment where Mad Mardigan is calling Kit. And of course, shout out to the amazing Skywalker sound, Jack Kilmer and Val for offering to do this. It's so good. It adds so much. We've already talked about how Willow calls out that Mad Mardigan is fighting the Wyrm from inside the Wyrm. So I actually think that he's almost a spirit of sorts in this vision, if that makes sense. And she reaches back out and, calls him out to say, like, you left. And he says, I'm with you always, which is like George Lucas's greatest hits.
Yep, exactly.
I don't know. I love it so much. You've got to be willing to give up what you want for what you believe. Okay. This brings me back to George again, talking about pleasure versus joy, right? And how joy is interconnected with compassion and what you do for others. Oh my gosh.
But I think the whole point here, and this is why I love it so much and why I'm so glad we called out the consumption motif and House of Atreus stuff from the first episode.
Yes.
What happens here? Mad Mardigan is wrong.
Yes.
He's wrong.
Dad, I'm not you. And he's like, yes, you are. No, I'm not. All right, you're better. And okay, so what does it mean to be better? It means to continuously go into the adventure and make a better choice. I often think about the video game Hades. It's a roguelite, which is that you continuously go on the same journey, right? You're going back through the underworld. You're fighting your way out of the underworld. And every time you get better at it. You might get a little bit farther, or you might not get a little further, but you keep on learning and you keep on growing. And Kit is Mad Mardigan with the opportunity to make a different choice than he did. And also, this character, Kit, is from a metatextual perspective, our heroine who is able to make a different choice than previous stories had been made before, because all stories are all of us working through our collective shadows.
Right. And this is, I loved this so much, especially when you pair it with, obviously, the final scene with Eric that calls back to this purposefully, which is, it's wrong. Giving up what you want for what you believe in. Well, what does that mean? Want. It doesn't mean simple, silly wants. I want a piece of chocolate. Again, it means the soul deep desire. Exactly what the Crone refers to later, that Graydon, she says that Graydon is drawing on in his attempt to defeat her, and that ultimately Allura needs to draw on to defeat her, is that soul deep desire. What do you really, truly want? And the idea of giving up that soul deep desire for, quote, what you believe in, which is actually just a euphemistic way of saying societal expectations. It's actually wrong. Parents should not sacrifice their children for their ideals.
Yeah.
It's not okay to abandon your kids for the greater good. That's not a good thing. Love is life, not death. Care, not martyrdom. And the reason you have heroes in this story who are cooking, healing, holding one another,
crying
over one another, comforting one another, is because they understand this. And so that's why I love this story and I love the message of it, and the idea that you could take this iconic character of Mad Mardigan, who's calling out to his daughter from basically beyond the grave, and still have the story say he was wrong and she's going to do better. And thus this story will tell us what we need to be told better. Yeah. You are her shield. You are her sword. And I'm already so proud of you. And that denotes that he's going to be more proud of her in the future. All right. But the Crone ain't having this because Kit has realized she needs to protect Allura. And the Crone says the Great Awakening has begun. And essentially this is, she turns Kit to stone, and it is, we see that there are other people who have embraced the power of the Wyrm, who are now sort of stuck in this city of the undead, who are awakening to the call of the Wyrm, the dark side, right? To sort of start to storm the planet, I guess, in a way, right? Yeah.
Like that's kind of what happened. The blood is flowing.
It looks like the Uruk-hai, leaving, Isengard or something. Yeah.
It felt like the sci-fi budget or the FX budget wasn't too high, and so we only saw like 3 of them actually in the city. But
Exactly.
it's fine. We got to see them like
Fine.
it was really far away. It was a far away shot. It was fine. Sometimes limitations build better story, right? And okay, can we talk about this great awakening and those that embrace his power? Okay, so it's because she has Allura in her grasp, and she's getting closer and closer to having consumed Allura. So that's really, really important. And that's what she's missing. She is missing the divine feminine that can help her basically complete whatever she needed.
Yeah, she's also on a Lost Bride quest.
Yes, she is. She is missing that. So let's cut back to Eric and Allura, because this was paired at the same time. But Eric and Allura are sitting on their little picnic blanket under the maple tree. It was really cool. They, in the if you go to lucasfilm.com, they have breakdowns of each of the episodes, and they always have like super handy things that they talk about, kind of like some behind the scenes stuff. And by the way, I really hope we get a behind the scenes special.
Yes, please.
This is a Japanese maple tree that they are sitting under, or Mimiji. And specifically, it was chosen because it evoked the feeling, like the falling leaves and the leaves themselves, of embers. Consumption, fire. Aha.
Yep. And remember this because it comes back in another subtle way later in terms of the falling stuff.
Yes. And maple trees themselves are long-lived and are abundant. And also because the leaves are falling, it's specifically autumn, or this again is another thematic tie to death and consumption, right? Everything is dying here.
Yep.
It's such an interesting way to show beauty in the darkness. Oh, so good. All right, so Eric asks, "Can you fly?" I immediately thought, okay, so at some point, Allura's going to fly. That's cool.
That's what I thought too. I was like, well, she's definitely going to fly now.
Now she's going to fly. Can you shoot lightning out of your fingertips? And he tries to like touch her hand, like very flirtily. And she's like, and she gets super shy.
Yeah.
And immediately she goes back to her comfort place, which is always Missy and I's favorite thing. She talks about, how cooking comes so naturally to her, and how sometimes she just gets into this space where she doesn't even really, I just go to this place where I wasn't even thinking about it or what I was doing. And he assumes that's magic, but it was cooking. And I want to talk about this. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but I'm just going to call it out and say this is what is considered to be the flow state, or some athletes and artists call it being in the zone.
Yep.
And she says, like, magic has never felt like that for her. And so this is where Eric gets her. He's like, well, maybe the answer is you don't want to be Allura. Maybe you want another purpose. This is always like the thing the Wyrm does. It's like, I will give you purpose. I will give you the answers.
Yeah. But I do want to go back, though, to the fact that they paired the conversation about, can you shoot lightning bolts out of your fingertips, with Allura describing how she cooks, which she specifically says, and I forget the exact phrasing, but she basically says that she feels as though her hands know what to do, and her hands are doing it on their own. And when you say, how sometimes artists are in the zone. So I went to art school, and I've always found that if I am drawing from figure or still life, that I feel that my brain disconnects from my hands, and my hands are drawing by themselves, and my brain can be doing something else. And it's wild. It's literally like I've just sort of let my brain drift away because my hands are just creating. And so when she describes that, I was like, wow, that's really personal, because I know exactly how that feels. But what she's saying is that, no, I can't shoot lightning out of my fingertips, but I imagine if I could, that it would feel like this thing that I do when I'm cooking. And then, of course, later, that's exactly what happens. Yeah. Right?
She understands the connection, which is just to let her body do it.
when it happens, she looks down at her hands and sees they're doing it on their own. So it does happen. And so I love how beautifully this scene sets that up.
It's so good. It
is
good.
so good.
This is so well written. And honestly, like every single one of these episodes, it feels like the writing has gotten progressively better and stronger and like just more technically proficient. I don't know. It's
very much
very sophisticated writing.
Yeah. Very tight toward the end.
Yeah, tight. Like they knew what they needed to say and how they needed to say it. It's almost like it was written in reverse. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Huh.
Another thing I want to say about the whole, oh, maybe you don't want to be a Laura Dannon is, again, and I am cautious about this, but I want to pull this back to Star Wars again. We had Rey, who was told that being Rey Nobody was not enough. She needed to be Rey Palpatine or Rey Skywalker. She needed to be Rey some great name, but it wasn't okay to be Rey Nobody, which was, firstly, her true identity. Secondly, her most powerful identity.
Right.
And the thing about Allura is she is the tri-goddess, but Allura specifically is who she truly is and is also her most powerful, affiliation. So in encouraging her to not be a Laura Dannon, they're saying deny yourself and don't be as powerful as you can be.
Yes. And this is quite a common motif within the heroine's journey, which is you must do things the way the society tells you to do. And woman, you cannot be powerful in the way that you feel. You must be powerful in the way that the man tells you must be powerful, which is playing by the guy's rules, basically. So how we see this in real life is women are told that they can't have emotions. They can't have children and be successful in business. They can't be angry. They can't have passion. It's all of these things.
Your rage is wrong. Your desires are wrong. That these things are wrong about you and that they make you somehow defective. And so when he says to her, so all you'd give up would be something that you never wanted in the first place. And here's the thing. She does want it. She's just afraid to grasp that, to acknowledge that that's what she really wants and go after it. And we know she does because she said in the last episode, oh, I kind of always wanted to be a princess. She likes the power. She wants it. She absolutely wants to wield that power. 100%. But she's told that is wrong.
Yeah. And good girls don't want to be powerful. They want to, good girls want to take a man's name, get married, have kids, and be waiting for him. That's the heroine's journey. It's deeply, deeply rooted in patriarchy, and how we break free from that as women is to understand our own desires and seek those with balance. Yep. Yeah.
Heavy stuff in this episode, but it's great.
It's great. All right. So he offers her the solution, and very quickly we immediately cut to the wedding. He hands her the cup. People have asked me, did she drink from the cup? Actually, I don't think it matters. I don't think she did, but it actually kind of doesn't matter because the most important part of this is the next part, which is the wedding. Right. I want to freak out so much about this part. I have so much to say. I have so many notes. I have like a page of notes just on this sequence. What the hell? I mean, it is like halfway through the episode, so it is that point by which the entire episode pivots, and thus this is sort of the climax of the season, if that makes sense.
It is absolutely. I love it too, and I have lots to say about it, so let's go.
It is I'm losing my freaking mind. They gave us a glorious, freaking beautiful wedding that was both amazing and felt wrong.
Yes. It's so deeply uncomfortable, even though it's gorgeous.
It is deeply unnerving, and it absolutely reminds you that you are marrying the wrong man the entire time.
Yep. exactly. And also, before we get too deep into this, I just want to say, Marie Claire, all right, what are the odds that somebody has heard your Dark Union episode? Because I'm sorry, but I was just like when this scene came up, I started freaking out and going, what? It's like, it's Dark Union, but in the most explicit way that I've ever seen it. I couldn't believe it.
It's like, you're not the only one to ask me this, and I have no answer. I don't. I'm the only one that talks about this specific way. It is referenced symbolically in Search for the Swan Maiden. Marie Louise von Franz talks about it in a very specific way, but we have not one, not two, but 3 Dark Unions in this episode.
Yep.
I guess I got to write a book.
Yeah, please write a book. Because, and listen, I'm teasing, but I'm also not, because I think that this is something that has been really missing, frankly, from a lot of heroines' journeys. We have seen more heroines' journeys in media in recent years, which is awesome. It's very exciting. But what we haven't gotten to see is the full exploration of the heroine's darkness in most instances. And one of the best ways to explore the heroine's darkness is Dark Union. Like, what happens when they pursue the false path, regardless of whether it's a husband or not? When they pursue the false path, the dark path, what's the result of that? How do they find their way out of that? What is the path out? And so I think the fact that we got so much Dark Union in this episode really shows that they're not afraid to go to those places. In Willow, they're going to give us that. They're going to allow Allura to fully explore her own darkness and face all of her shadows. And so I'm just really, really excited about it. And to your point about there being multiple Dark Unions in this, one of them, of course, is Hot Crone Eric. And the thing is that the Crone, and she even calls out explicitly in this scene, and Allura are another sort of pair, another twin pair, because they're so similar. They are 2 sides of a coin.
She is Dark Allura, yeah.
She is Dark Allura. Yeah. The Hot Crone is Dark Allura. Lily is Dark Allura. She absolutely is. And we saw it last episode, and then it's really, really explicit in this episode. And she calls out the similarities between them. So, everything she's experiencing should also be viewed as something that Allura is experiencing.
So I think it's just really important to summarize what Dark Union is. Dark Union is when a person who is going through their alchemical processes and are trying to reach alchemical union with the different aspirates, pieces of themselves, is interrupted by a force, maleficent force that wants to take their power for themselves and possess it. So they're taking away the pieces by which normally they would become more whole, and instead is taking all of that energy and sucking it up for themselves so that they themselves can be more powerful. If this was just relationship talk, it would be somebody who is like an energy vampire in real life and just sort of sucks up all of your joy and everything, and you got to break free from it. There are examples of Dark Union just between people. In Star Wars, any of the Sith relationships are considered to be a Dark Union. So with the master and apprentice situation with Anakin and Palpatine, as he enters into it, it is a Dark Union. How do you break a Dark Union? Well, by going through an alchemical union with yourself.
Yep.
And potentially metaphorically with somebody else, right? On screen. Right. So that's also how you break it. And yeah, the key, again, I'm just going to call out, is your energy is trying to be possessed by somebody else. And that energy could be your femme power, the thing that you represent. It could be your money. It could be your like in story, it could be your title, right? Or it could be literally the power of the goddess in all magic, which is what we get here.
Yeah.
For Allura, from a heroine's journey perspective, this is also the illusionary boon of success. She is told and she acts by the rules. Eric says, yeah, we're going to get married. You're going to be the perfect bride and you're going to be happy. But for some reason, she is not. This is also laying out all of her desires as she walks down the aisle. First, we see Graydon, and she focuses in on him, and he looks like a doll almost. All of them kind of look like dolls, like not real people. And then she sees all of her friends. For some reason, this entire sequence reminds me of the wedding from Twilight in Breaking Dawn, Part 1. I don't know why. I don't know. But Elora is in this gorgeous goddess gown, but it also doesn't feel right. It's very, like, not her. And her hair has been reverted to blonde, and you cannot see her birthmark. And she has a star veil, a veil made out of stars.
Yes. So many things, so many tiny details in there.
There's so much.
The dress, as we said, I mean, it's a wedding dress, so it's white, except it's not quite white. It's white and a pale pink, which is like a blush, as you might use for a baby girl. She is being infantilized. It gets better. The hair, in addition to going back to blonde, away from the goddess, back to the maiden, the child is also bound up instead of down and loose. She is tied, restricted, leashed. The music playing in the background is Bruce Springsteen's I'm on Fire. And listen, I got to admit, I still haven't really come around to every single use of modern music in this show. It's very hit or miss for me, but this absolutely worked for me because you get this reveal of her. She's being walked down the aisle by a mother figure. She's being walked down the aisle by, again,
Sorsha.
A parent or mentor.
Yeah.
She's got Sorsha, and we know this is not real Sorsha too. So it's like there's layers of it. It's actually like a Wyrm manifestation.
It's a dark mother. It's a dark mother. Yeah.
Right. She's being walked down the aisle to be given away. And in the background, hey, little girl, is your daddy home?
I didn't even catch that.
How infantilizing.
Yep.
And then, the song, I'm on Fire. So we continue with the consumption theme, but we're also saying we've regressed her to this child, to a maiden. She's a baby. She needs to be tied and given away. And the veil, we just, that's no, keep yourself hidden there. Yeah. And also another thing I want to mention is that in fairy tales and frankly in life, and Marie-Claire and I have talked about this before, marriage and major life events like this, it's the end of one life and the beginning of another. It is a death. And so marriage is a death. And so many, many times you will actually see wedding and funeral imagery used together. So her outfit here needs to be understood not just as a wedding dress, but as a shroud.
Yeah. And I was struck by how the veil hung so close to her face like a shroud. And so it's like the death of the goddess because the star motif is associated with her celestial form. And so it's like she is a dead goddess walking up the aisle.
Yeah.
What is this show?
What is this show? Yes.
What is this show?
Down the aisle, being consumed
by the flame tree.
By the flame tree. Like, what? It's insane.
They wrote this down in a script and then they made it become real.
It's insane.
What?
Oh my God. This whole sequence is incredible. It's so gorgeous and so disconcerting. And I'm just like, I'm in awe. It's amazing. And then the Crone's line, you cross the world to save the man you love. And now you can. And it's like there's blinking red lights over it going, false husband. Turn back. No, don't do it. But this is on the surface. This is everything she wanted. This is exactly what she's doing. And so it's really amazing.
The Hot Crone also says, with one simple act of love, you can complete the circle. Okay, I need to talk about this for a second.
Oh, yes. I know where you're going with this. Go for it.
Do you know? I don't even know where I'm going.
Complete the circle. You said that the Wyrm.
The Wyrm is not an Ouroboros.
Mhm.
It's not. It's not one of the snakes that eats its own tail, which is a symbol for death and rebirth. And often in mythos, a snake that eats its own tail, the head is femme and the tail is masc. And so
Mhm.
when you have a snake that eats its own tail, it's a symbol for death and rebirth and the continuous cycle of nature.
Mhm.
In mythologies where you have a snake that does not eat its own tail, there is an end times. And so I'm thinking of Jormungandr, 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 the world snake in Norse mythology. And she, they're not eating their own tail, and there's going to be an end to the world, and the snake is involved in that.
Mhm.
So, what's really interesting is the missing piece, the completion of the circle, is Allura connecting the circle. There's
Mhm.
something in that. And it's like there's a truth being said that there's going to be a cure to all the diseased world of all of its inflictions and be joined in his light forever. They're making us a dark union promise that's not going to go the way that the Wyrm says it will.
Yep.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? This is a prophecy.
But we've already seen it play out on a smaller scale, because we've already seen Graydon as the tail, and Allura as the head, and she already ate him in episode 4. So we know, and now if he becomes allied with the Wyrm,
but
he's still the tail, she's still the head.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
and they still have to come together.
Is that this show does micro and then macro. And so by showing us this at the absolute key moment in as the climax of the first season, they're saying that this is the thesis of the show.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying is that, and by how they resolve this, they're going to cure the world. They're going to heal all of the lost undead people who are stuck in the underworld. They're going to be joined together in light.
I love it. So cool.
This show is driving me crazy.
This scene is driving me crazy. Like, this scene is so cool.
I literally wrote, the circle is complete. What?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is missing? Because the Wyrm can't reach its own tail.
Yep.
Because they're not a cycle. They're not in union. And because Allura is the goddess, she selected her mate.
Mm-hmm.
What is this show?
What is it now? And so then they follow through on this concept by having Eric tell her that what he needs is her kiss. And he calls back to what he said to her, that like, oh, just look at me like this forever and that'll be enough. And then he tells her, and it almost is just that. And your kiss. And the interesting thing is the difference between this and Graydon. Because when Graydon made his love confession, he expected nothing in exchange. He did not expect her love back. He did not expect her to look at him like this forever. He certainly didn't expect her kiss. He gave his love freely with no expectation of return. And here's Eric saying, not only is what I originally asked you for not enough, but I need more from you. And specifically, the way he's going to kiss her is the consumption kiss, which means he's not giving. It's not a self-gift. He's taking from her.
Yeah. And
he's going to take her power.
This is the key to Dark Union, and how you know that you see it is that it's a taking of the power of the usually femme person, but it doesn't have to be. It's something feminine about them.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And she stops. First I want to pull up what the crone says. He's all yours, dear. And then, and you're all ours. Oh my God.
Yeah. You is all of ours. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So good.
Like, what is subtext?
Who needs subtext?
No, literally,
Straight to
we're
text.
saying, yes, you're going to be consumed, Alora, by this. It will become a dark union. There, you will join the many underworld people, who are stuck in the underworld, right? You're going to be consumed by the dark side. That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
And she's like, wait a second. This is not what I signed up for. I don't think I'm not into you anymore. Right? Because she listens to her heart. What's really super fascinating is like literally the only person in the audience that you can see during their like vows is Graydon.
Yep.
Behind him.
Yeah.
Behind them.
That's so cool.
Like they're so
That's so
smart.
They are. They're incredible. So she says, no one's going to make me do something I don't want to do because Alora's desires matter. And this is one of the biggest lessons, if not the biggest lesson, that she has to learn, and then of course she passes on to Kit.
This is the secret elixir. This is the secret elixir. This is what you find in the underworld.
That what you really want, again, that soul deep desire, that matters. That has power, and she takes it in this moment, and that's incredible. And at this moment, the second that she rejects him, instead of the falling leaves and soft sparkles, suddenly it's ash falling and dust.
Yeah.
So it's all starting to fall apart. It's all starting to burn.
And there was a few moments where like there was wispiness on people's faces, like the Crone and Sorsha and stuff like that, to show that they were like burning in some way. Like it was really cool.
You see like a brief moment of like, yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. There was the moment where Kit and Sorsha are talking, and then Sorsha, like she has it like this like burn, like scorch across her face where you can tell it's like the crone or the Wyrm. And then again with Lily, same thing. Like all of a sudden you see, her face kind of burn a little bit. And so, that it's not her real form. So yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. That's cool.
There is a repetition of this secret knowledge 3 times. Okay. So we hear it here with her understanding that she doesn't want Eric. We see her physically react to the person that she did want dying in Graydon. We will get to that. And then how she recognizes that Kit doesn't have to lose what she wants, which is to save Eric.
Yes.
So 3 always makes a motif.
It's so good. It's so beautiful. I love it. I love the idea that this entire show hinges on
letting women
desire.
Yeah.
Feminine desire, feminine rage.
Well,
like,
it's like what do women want, but also men showing up and agreeing to support women in what they want. What?
I love this show.
And also I should say, like, it's not just women. It's also the femme aspects in men. And so this show is incredibly anti-patriarchal. End to end.
Well, because to go back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of the episode, remember, our point isn't that this is necessarily a women's story. The point is all people who live under a patriarchal system have a missing feminine and a wounded masculine, because that is what patriarchy does to a person and to a society. So the point is that the journey that you see these characters taking is a journey that everyone needs to take, regardless of your gender.
And how do we heal ourselves but going on a heroic journey to integrate these different aspects of ourselves and come out the other side more whole? Joseph Campbell talking about it at the start of the episode. Like, that's what we bring back and we show others. It's all important. It's all here. I think that's why we really like to do the like Maiden to Mage and the mythic parallels at the start of the episode, is just to be like, these are things you gotta like keep in your mind, because this show is so incredibly dense with all of these layers that, it's speaking to us in how it presents the material, but then it's also symbolically there. We need to be constantly talking about this as a society too. And this gives us a platform to talk about it.
Yeah. So then Lily says, we're sorceresses, goddesses.
Oh my God.
We make our own rules. And I wrote, subtext? What's that? Because
I'm like, we've been talking about goddesses this whole time.
This entire time. And we said that she was Dark Alora, and she's basically just saying it right out there. like it's obvious. It was just so fantastic.
Yeah,
and then Eric,
but I want to say, like, we make our own rules. It's like, oh, Lily, you're you made a mistake.
Okay, you're not actually playing by your own rules, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I know you think you are, but you're not.
You're trapped in the machine. Did you not realize that? Yeah. Alora needed to hear this from the Dark Goddess, which was the descent into the goddess, to confirm. And that's really key, because, like, in the heroine's journey, when you descend into the goddess, you realize you're also the goddess.
Yes.
Right? So descent into the goddess means you look in the mirror and you see yourself, and you are also the goddess. And literally, we have Dark Alora telling Alora, you are a goddess. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, right. So she's looking into the dark mirror. It's mind-boggling. I love it. It makes me so happy.
What?
Yeah. What is this show?
What is this show?
So then Eric calls her by the wrong name again. Dove.
Oh yeah.
And
this is the Ross moment. This is the Ross moment where he like, oh, he's marrying Emily in London and he calls her Rachel.
Yeah. Yes. But it also sets up for what happens immediately next, which is he calls her by the wrong name.
Yeah.
And then Willow busts in through the door. I mean, there's no door, but whatever. He busts into this vision and he calls her by her true name, gives her full title, like, Last Blood of Chimeria, blah, 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 blah. It's great.
Willow said, both in the show and as Willow Dad, consent is important.
Yes, he did. He did. But also this moment, this is like Mufasa saying to Simba, remember who you are.
Right. Yeah. It's the reminder of the identity. Yeah.
This is, he just called her Dove, and then Willow comes in and says, no, this is who you are. And he lays it all out for her.
There is a point later on that I do want to talk about Isis and Osiris, but I do actually want to call out that sometimes we need other people to remember us. And that is a key motif in the Isis and Osiris myth. And I just want to say, like, shout out for this writing, that they understand these psychological puzzle pieces so well. That identity sometimes takes other people to remind us who we are.
This is actually what frequently is the final step of recovering both the lost bride and the lost husband as well, is it's often calling them by their true name. That's a really, really, really important part of this. And remember what I said at the beginning about if all of season 1 is a Sleeping Beauty story about Alora awakening to her power, and she has 3 princes who are Willow, Graydon, and Kit. This is the original prince, Willow, coming back in to say her name again and remind her who she is so that she can fully awaken to her power.
Yeah. And this is how you know that this is a dark union as well, in that it is technically a divine union. It is an alchemical union with her true self, right?
Yes.
And Willow being a prince is like awakening her with that kiss, like you said. So
exactly.
Yeah, I sent you a picture of the alchemical union. I was like, oh, you got to see it. Like, it was in Discord or whatever. But yeah.
I did see that.
It's the 2 selves, and then you are the third. You are the full self, right? It's good stuff.
Yep.
All right. So because Willow does this amazing moment, like, it's going to go down in history. It's so beautiful where it cracks the whole spell, and Alora is prostrated on the Wyrm, on the
keyhole.
The keyhole, the yonic sexual symbolism of the Wyrm, filling the gap, completing the circle.
Yep.
Right? In a sacrificial way, not in a consensual way. Okay. And then everybody is, like, magic spell is broken. Everybody turns back from stone and cracks and things like that. And then is allowed to live again. And Kit immediately runs to Alora and checks in. At some point, the rest of the stone crew was moved into the temple, which was really...
whatever.
I don't care. But Kit comes and checks in. You good? Kit's like, Alora's like, I almost married your brother. And she's like, I didn't think you should marry him anyways. What, because he was possessed or just a little naive? Okay, I actually think Kit was going to say, because you're actually in love with Graydon.
Oh, I don't know if they were there yet, because you know what? And I don't know. I could get in big trouble for saying this in the Grey Laura fanon. I don't think that she returns his feelings fully yet. I think she's close, but I don't think she's there. I think she's really close, but I don't think she's there yet, because I don't think she knows herself well enough to truly love yet. Like, you can't truly give love until you know yourself, until you love yourself. Yeah. And so so I don't think she's there yet.
I think yes, but it's obvious that she has complicated feelings for him, to everybody. Like, yeah.
Is she very much on the path to being fully in love with him? Yes. Is she
heavy in like with him? Yes.
Yes. Does she care about him? Is she attracted to him? All of these are true. Absolutely. Yes. She has complex feelings, but I don't think she's there yet.
Relationship status, it's complicated.
Relationship status, I love that. So yeah, and so then the crone, the withered crone, finally appears at last.
Oh my god, she's glorious!
Her full creepy, gross aspect.
She has a nose ring with a chain. She's missing one eye. She looks so dilapidated and gross, and just she's as gross as I wanted her to be.
It's so funny because, again, there's another one of those things where at that moment I was like, oh, Marie Claire must be loving this.
And actually, almost from the beginning that you see her, and in certain moments, you can actually see the tentacles underneath her.
Really?
Yeah, like from the start, you can see them. I paused. When she's flying, you can actually see them. But yeah, she's full like Ursula the Sea Witch situation going on, which is an example of a dark union.
Yeah, it's true. Yucky. But yeah, so Eric jumps in front of the rotten crone to defend her. He immediately is like, no, must defend my lady love. I love that for him. Seriously.
And gets knocked out.
It gets knocked out. Alora's upset that she hurt Eric. It sort of, messes with her confidence. The wand skitters away. She still can't do magic the way that she wants or needs. What the crone says, it's not that you don't have the power, it's conviction you lack. Where's Shalindria's little stick? Mm-hmm. And this is so important for so many reasons. Because first of all, again, the show doesn't lie to you. She's telling you the truth. It is true that it's not true that she doesn't have the power. She absolutely has the power. And it is conviction she lacks. Why? Because again, it's about what does she really, truly want? And right now, she still, even up to this moment, still wants to defeat the crone because she knows it's what she's supposed to do as Alora Dannon. But she doesn't really believe she can or believe that it is not something she deeply wants to do. And so she can't quite figure it out. And so then what happens?
Graydon picks it up.
Graydon picks up the wand. Which is
her desire. And she has been denying it. And like Willow called it out. Graydon's like, I just want to talk. And she's like, I don't want to talk. Like as much as Graydon has said, I'm not evil. I'm not that hot lich guy that you liked. Alora has been saying, I don't want you. I was not attracted to the hot lich guy. So all of their lies out on the table. And Alora knows what's going to happen before it happens. She's like, Graydon, please just don't. And Graydon's like, I know what I'm doing. And the crone's like, show me. And Graydon starts to cast his spells and he ends up using both his flute and Shalindria's wand, and he just burns out. He peters out, and I know why.
Let's hear it.
Somebody asked me on Twitter. They're like, Marie Claire, why did he peter out? Okay. Graydon was unsuccessful. Yes, he had passion. Yes, he had love, but he has not integrated his darkness, and all of your power is in the dark. Mm-hmm. All of it. Like, it is so like Yoda talks about it, more powerful the dark side is. No, but easier. Yeah, but actually when you integrate your shadow, you collect all of that power that's been sucked away from you into the darkness. So you have to go and collect all of your darkness and reintegrate it with yourself to become a whole person. And when you do that, when you can fully understand all of those things, then you can fully be whole and thus the powerful person that you've been meaning to be. He can't do it because he was missing the confirmation that he has darkness within him. Whereas a few seconds later, Elora is able to do it because she finally understands that she desired Graydon and now that he is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what he was missing. He has not integrated his biggest shadow. And the crone says, see, that's what you're missing. Passion. Yeah, she is missing her desires. I genuinely felt how badly he wanted to hurt me. Hurt me. Darkness. He put everything he had into it because he really hadn't really gotten everything, but that's okay. Desire is really the most exquisite agony.
Yep.
Oh, God, that's such a good line.
It is.
The line that launched 1,000 AO3 fics, which will all be named Exquisite Agony.
Oh, so great. So it's pain. It's drawing from pain, but not in a healed way that, to your point, would enable you to transform the pain and use it as a source of power. Instead, it is just raw pain that is not healed, and all it does, it's also consuming. You've heard of all consuming pain. It's the type of pain where you cannot focus for how much it hurts. That's what this desire that she's talking about is. And so it cannot be a source of power.
Yeah. And like Carrie Fisher said, take your broken heart and turn it into art, right?
Yep.
When you have integrated these shadows, it creates more beautiful things in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're missing. Passion and ache. She breaks the wand in half and throws it into the goo, right?
Yes. Yes. And I love this so much because it's obviously, there's 3 wands total, right?
Yeah.
In this story, you got Cherlindria's wand, Willow's staff, and then Graydon's flute. And notably, only one of those survives to the end.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Fascinating. And, this does remind me of the Legacy Saber and how in TLJ it was broken and essentially it had deep meaning that it was split, and this sort of divine couple, Rey and Kylo, who are 2 halves of the same protagonist, were split, and the universe was split, and all of these things. But in the Rise of Skywalker, it was, I guess, put back together for some reason with tape, and didn't have any meaning. Whereas now Elora is free of the Cherlindria legacy and can now go on her own path.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that the legacy wands are both destroyed. The only one that still exists is the one that ties her to her other half.
And she yells, no,
yeah,
please, because she knows what's going to happen, because it's so hard, but Graydon must do this now because she selected him. It's fairy tale logic, I get it, but she chose him. He chose her by reading the friggin' narcotic as she was being born as a goddess in the first episode, and she chose him now all the way along, just by caring about him, she chose him. And we already know that Graydon loves Elora, but Elora didn't know that she loved Graydon until this old hag of a crone just pops him and explodes him into pieces.
Yep.
Pieces. This is important because this ties to the Isis and Osiris myth. And he gets almost sucked into a portal into the underworld.
Yep.
So Osiris, Isis and Osiris is another lost husband mythology. Osiris is unlived by his brother Set, and again sent on a trip, and then when found again, he's cut into a bunch of pieces, and Isis has to go and collect all of those pieces and remember who he is. So remember this motif. It's going to come back. I know it will. Isis and Osiris. Go and watch YouTube videos or read the Wikipedia. It's really, really important.
Member refers to body parts she has to remember. She has to put him back together by remembering him. So it's like, it's literally got to get down to the etymology of the word. But yes, that's what it is.
Osiris becomes the king of the underworld, and she is his consort, and she is the goddess of creation, and he's the god of the dead, like balance.
So an underworld king and a celestial queen?
Wait, what?
Wait a minute.
Wait.
Hang on. What? Where have we heard that? Anyway.
Yeah.
So then she runs over to the door. You know,
everyone is upset. I do want to say, like, they do flash to everyone, and everyone's
horrified.
like, "What?"
Yeah. Right. They're all horrified.
Not the sock of the team. Not the heart of the team. Right?
Yeah. But she runs over, and she's very clearly in mourning. She runs to the edge of the portals here, and she looks down, and she sees the worm.
It's literally a worm.
The underworld. A worm in the underworld.
Okay, and she could see it because she is the goddess. That's
right.
important.
That's right.
Yeah.
Not everyone would have been able to see it, but she can. She can see it. And she turns with very clearly revenge in her eyes. And she looks down and she sees the power coiling over her
I
hands.
have a question, because this is related to
Yes.
Cupid and Psyche, because usually when the lost husband disappears, like in Cupid and Psyche, the true form of the love was revealed. Did she see him as the worm? I hate to say that, but like the harbinger is the worm.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Maybe.
You think the worm is something different?
Is he the worm? I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. It's like, I think it's possible that he and the worm are separate entities, but then at some point they will actually merge and he will be the worm.
Well,
I don't think he's the worm now, but
Okay.
I think he might become the worm, if that makes sense.
Well, it's sort of like how you say in Starbride stuff, just because
she's destined to be the Starbride she is, and therefore because he's destined to be the worm he is. I guess it's possible. I like your theory, actually. You know,
it's just because and again, that was total speculation. Sorry,
no, I like
that was
it.
a lot.
That's a cool idea.
But it is a motif that is quite common in lost husband stories, where you see their true form when they need to disappear.
But I guess. But typically it's maybe, and I know this might be quibbling a little bit, but typically the true form is revealed before the loss, not after.
Not in Cupid and Psyche.
No, it is though, because she reveals him with the lamp, and then that is what causes
at the
he
same
awakens.
moment. Yeah.
And then he leaves. But the point is that the loss occurs because the true form was revealed. Again, as I said before, typically the taboos that is broken in a lost husband story is her seeing him for who he truly is. She sees him in the light. She sees him when he's in his human form. She sees him whatever.
So then what taboo is broken?
But the fact that she saw his dark form, knows it to be the truth of him, and desires him like that. That she doesn't accept him as like, I'm good guy graded.
Like the anger and the hate, like that.
She sees his darkness.
Hatred and the anger and the pain associated with him. And she was actually like, wait a second, that's actually what I wanted, what the crone is calling out. Okay, cool. I just wanted to call that out. Same thing as the worm.
Yes. So my point is, you might be right. I just don't know if they've made it literal or not. I guess we'll see.
I mean, that's where I'm struggling. I'm like, is he literally a giant earthworm underneath the
It depends.
the world?
It depends whether they do they ultimately
do they go
cast
full like
the worm? Yeah. Do they ultimately cast the worm as a completely separate entity, or do they just say, actually, Graydon is the worm? I don't know. We'll see.
Literally, it could go either way. Just by being the harbinger of the worm, you are the worm. So it's just, it's like, yeah, again, it's just semantics and how things work. Sorry, this was a really interesting thought experiment. I apologize. We'll get back onto the regular planned scheduled show.
Which will never end, much like the worm itself. Anyway.
If you understood any of that, thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, that does bring us up to and actually I'm forgetting at what point it happens, but that does bring us up to the funniest, goofiest line from this episode, which was, "You think you can defeat the worm? He's eternal, bitch." Like,
oh my gosh. I love this show so much.
I thought that was cheesy, but I loved it anyway. So it was great. It was a fun time.
Like, you can't defeat the darkness. You have to integrate it. Like, it's also saying that, but like, also like, yeah, I love this cheesy show so much. That's just joy.
It's so fun. It's so great. So anyway, the power appears in her hands and she blasts the crone, and you see the crone like fly through the door all the way down. Like, it was like, whoa, like she really took her out there. And then Willow appears, why'd you come back? Well, I realize this is where I belong, standing beside you.
Do you want me to talk about Lightning Fingers first?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about Lightning Fingers.
A shout out to Ty Black, who has appeared on the podcast before for many Power of Myth and Symbolism episodes. Ty and I have talked about this in the past, and honestly, she was way more familiar with it, so I checked in with her. But essentially, Lightning Fingers is a psychological thing that appears as a motif in young adults' dreams, specifically often women, as a sort of feminine power fantasy as they're going through sexual awakening. And it's because there's a big conceal narrative to it, in that suddenly as women and femme, we determine and we find that we actually have a lot of power related to our sexuality, and men start to be almost drawn to that as we're going through puberty. And it is a fantasy and motif that shows up in young people's writing as well as in dreams. And it comes from the idea that with this growing power, we have a need to protect ourselves from undesirable behavior. And so it ends up flowing from this almost darkness within ourselves to fight and hurt people who want us the way that we don't want to be wanted. And it's really, really fascinating. But the key, too long didn't read, it's connected to sexual awakening, and also it's something that is very natural and very dark, coming from a place of darkness.
But I want to call out again how this differs from the way lightning powers are depicted for Rey in the sequel trilogy. So for Rey in the sequel trilogy, it is not a power that she is meant to embrace. In fact, it's not even her power. It's meant to indicate her relationship to Palpatine. It's not actually supposed to belong to her at all. And she's not meant to use it. It is used to sort of reveal how she is defective and there's something wrong with her. And
she's not supposed to have desires or power like that.
Yeah.
It's wrong. Yeah.
The way that her lightning power is used in that movie is very similar to the way that the Dark Rey manifestation is used in that movie, which is to say, don't do this. Don't embrace this. This is not for you. Go be a good girl. Stop that. Don't be powerful. Don't embrace your darkness.
Please go and revert to a damsel now.
Yep. Yeah. So that is what that is. And that's another reason why, as I said, as much as I try to view this show on its own merits, it's really hard to view it outside the context of that series and how most of what that got wrong, this show is very clearly getting right. It is incredibly satisfying to watch Allura wield this power and frankly relish it when she's really getting into it with the crone and she yells again, like, oh, she's just it with her. It's great. Like, oh my gosh. And there's this moment where she sort of slowly twists her hands and just sort of just eases into it, and she relaxes, and you can see her just loving the feel of the power flowing through her. And
I have
she's
thoughts.
having that, she's reached that space that she talked about to Eric when she's cooking.
It's the zone.
Where
yes.
she's in the zone and the power's just flowing and she knows what to do.
I have more thoughts on that if you want to hear them. Yeah.
Let's hear
it. Like I said, this is a natural experience. And so to be polite and PC for the podcast, this is an experience of self-love.
I don't know. Should we just say it?
But she almost copies the crone in a way, but it's very sensual and again related to sexual awakening. The power is flowing freely and it almost looks like a dance, and it ends up almost being like a dance fight. So the key to the flow, which of course Îyâxe Nakoda talks about with the 6 factors that accompany the experience of flow. It's intense and focused. Concentration is in the moment. It's a merging of actions and awareness, loss of reflected self-consciousness. So the fact that she's sort of moving in this very sensual way, which Elora might have been more, I don't know, embarrassed about previously, that doesn't exist. That's really, really key. There's a sense of personal control and agency over the situation and activity. She is absolutely in control. There's a distortion of temporal experience. Like you don't know how long you've been in the zone or in this sort of magical flow. And the experience of doing the activity is deeply intrinsically rewarding. That's referred to as an autotelic experience. So all of this is shown in how Elora wields her own magic, her own, like the magic is her in this story. And so this is her true form. If that makes sense.
So cool. So cool. So then we see, Eric is rushing. He wants to try to stop Elora, obviously.
Oh, wait. There's something first.
Where?
There's something first.
Sorry.
Yes. We have the Borman Curious moment before this.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I got all so focused. I missed that.
I know, but we were so
amazing.
into the moment with Elora.
I know, right?
So Borman being his queen archetype, Papa Borman, he realizes that this isn't, the fundamental thing about the Curious and what he can do to protect everybody, Elora, and also protect Kit, is to hand the Curious over, this thing that he thought was meant for himself. So he's completing what he needs to do. And this isn't my story. I'm not the hero, right? Because now he's the queen. But I do have a part to play, basically, is my comment on that, i.e. I can enable you. It's just so nice to see these male characters showing up for women and telling them that they have the power to do what they need to do. It's just such a rare and valuable experience in fiction.
Yeah, it's amazing. And before the episode dropped, there were people theorizing that the Lux as the key to the cuirass and its position over the left side of the chest, which is over the heart, that indicated that the lover must, or not necessarily the lover, but a person who loves them must use the key, which is why, of course, in the flashback in episode 3, you saw the character's mother putting the key, the Lux, into the cuirass to activate it. And so, having heard those theories, I was so excited when he gives the cuirass to Kit and then hands the Lux to Jade, because I was like, oh, they were right. And then, of course, later, that's exactly what happens. Jade is the one who activates the cuirass by placing the key basically into the heart of her lover. And I just thought that was so incredible. So many wonderful things happen in such a short time here, and it's fantastic.
You need multiple rewatches to catch everything. It's really impossible to catch everything. But we also get a Borman like dad moment where he's like, "It's yours, you're the one, and all you have to do is believe in yourself, and you will be unstoppable." Oh my God, Borman. Thraxis Relaxis Borman. Good job.
What, in the Disney Channel movie? Oh my gosh. Just believe in yourself, but I love it.
I'd like to leave the world how I came in, butt naked and kicking ass. Who brought the butter? Oh my dear God.
Ridiculous.
Everything that comes out of his mouth is almost always sexual.
It is. He's so one-track minded.
Absolutely.
Good for him.
It's because he is looking for his mate. I hope we get more Scorpia in the future.
I know. Don't worry. He's her prisoner, so
yeah,
he can't get too far.
He'll come back. All right, so we have Eric appear now, fresh with facial scar.
Oh yeah. Yes. Here we go.
Subtext. What's that? This is all parallel to other characters we've seen in the past. I mean, Anakin had a facial scar. We got a facial scar on Ben Solo. Oh my goodness.
Yep. It's great. And in the case of Kylo Ren, who became Ben Solo, and vice versa, the facial scar in that instance was actually a peeling away of the mask. It was a peeling away of the beastly skin. She sliced through his Kylo mask to reveal the Ben Solo underneath. And that is, to some extent, what is happening here. Is that, Eric is wearing the beastly skin of Dark Eric. Now, it's not super explicit yet. It gets more explicit, obviously, in a few minutes. It gets really distinct. But he still is technically wearing a beastly skin in his dark aspect. And so the wound, the facial scar here, this is starting to peel that back. And he doesn't react well to it. He's very upset and, says, then Kit says to him, "Eric, the crone lied to you." And he says, "She told me the truth. She showed me what I could be." And of course, this feels super Anakin.
Anakin all the way. And
absolutely.
Okay, so we talked about the thirst motif last episode and the episode beforehand. Just the thirst, right? So this is the idea that when you don't have direction, you will take direction. You will take purpose from anyone freely giving purpose. Right? You're going to follow the wrong leader. And she's like, "You're my brother. Remember our familial connection. We're connected. Like, this is a bond. This is important. You should listen to me." And he instantly goes straight to domination. "I am your king."
Yep.
And Jade, I love you, Jade Claymore. I love you so much. Okay, this conversation is over.
Yeah.
Now we fight.
She's immediately like, what?
What?
They're done.
And yeah, like without purpose, people seek control. And so the king, or what he says he is ultimate control. But control for control's sake is tyranny. Eric doesn't really want to be king. He wants a purpose, and he is lost. And so they have to fight. And Jade and Kit are battle couple. The fight is so good. We only get a few flashes like between other stuff, but like the sword fighting in this is
I'm a big fan of the choreography in this episode.
Holy hell.
Really fun. Great stuff. I loved this battle, the three-way battle with the, battle couple Tanthamor and Dark Eric. Great stuff. And then obviously the twin fight after this was amazing. Which, speaking of which, like that was me last week. I was like, twin fight. And we got it. And I love it. It makes me happy. We're getting there.
We have Alora, who's kind of been caught back and has been running and fighting, and like she's been really trying to fight the crone and really call her power. Like at one point she says like the crone gets her and she's like, "Again," like in a dark way. It was I love this messy, like just absolutely in her own power Alora, but she kind of just doesn't. She just doesn't have it all, and so she's hiding, and Willow reaches out to her
telepathically.
And here's what happens.
She's too strong!
She's not as strong as you are.
Then why can't I beat her?
Because you're still afraid. You know, it's taken me a long time to learn. It's okay to fall, to make mistakes. I've made lots. It's how you become a cantankerous old sorcerer. I think the trick is to embrace your defeats as well as your victories. You pay for both in the end. Be decent. Be fearless. And know this. Wherever the adventure leads, I'm with you.
It's, to me, like the acceptance of failure, embracing your defeats as well as your victories. You will pay for both in the end. Oh my God. This is the greatest teacher failure is from The Last Jedi.
Yep.
It's such an important lesson for us to hear as a society that just because you failed doesn't mean it's the end. This is a chance for you to learn and grow from these failures.
The idea that failure, not just a teacher, but a source of power. You can draw on it. It's not just an empty hole of something that you didn't do right. It's something that makes you stronger. That's just such an incredible concept to just put explicitly into your script like that, so that your heroine can use it to
kick ass,
vanquish the dragon. Yeah, like that is so incredibly cool. And so he tells her this. He gives her the elixir, transforms into a mage, and she gathers the magic in her hands again, blasts, and then physically tackles the crow.
And this totally reminded me of the Rizal and Bavmorda
Yes, exactly.
fight.
I know.
Oh, I love her so much. We have this great moment where Eric overpowers Kit and is about to wholly come down on Jade, and Kit protects Jade. I love my battle couple.
Yeah, but she specifically protects her. You have to see the way she does it is the exact same move that Jade did to protect Kit back in episode 3. So they literally mirrored that exact same.
I thought it was connected, but I didn't realize it was exactly
No, they
mirrored.
did. It's precise.
That's so good. Alora Dannon, you will meet your end. And so the crone is on top of her because they had been wrestling and fighting and everything like that. And she starts to apply the magic to her face, and Alora doesn't even need her hands anymore. And she does the Uno reversi move and and turns all of the red magic into her bluey green aqua magic and pushes her back. The crone starts to fly. You can really see the tentacles in this scene. And Alora just completely overwhelms her with the magic. And the crone falls to the ground after having basically her entire insides becoming her outsides.
Basically blasts a hole through her chest. As if she has no heart and she just blew a hole through her chest.
She was like, you didn't have anything there. And she falls to the ground and she turns into sort of Hawk Crone or Lily, maybe her original form for a moment. I don't know if this is actually her turning back into the...
Or if it's just how he sees her.
It's just how she's... I think this is
could
just
be either one.
Could be either way. I kind of like the idea, it's just how Eric sees her. And he's like, what do I do? How can I help you? Because he's been used to taking orders, right? So he doesn't have his own thing. And she says, this was always the plan for you to become the Harbinger. And for her to die.
Bavmorda failed. You will succeed. And you are the Harbinger and you're ready. And he says, ready for what? And she says, to rule.
Okay, and so this is such a weird thing, but the worm even consumes harbingers. Interesting. So it uses up the people that fall to the dark side and just consumes them.
And this is why she was never free as she believed herself to be. She wasn't. And he certainly won't be either. And it's serving the worm means becoming part of the worm, which is why when he kisses her, and first of all, I want to say this reminded me of last week. You said, I wonder if he'll be into her when she's gross. He totally is. So I love that you were right about that.
I just threw that out there. I have no excuses. I apologize to my...
Don't apologize. You're right about everything. Right. So, but he kisses her. And everyone is like, ugh. and she crumbles away. And I want to go back to Dark Union.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kiss of death.
It is.
It does. If this was Divine Union, it would be a kiss of life and it would bring her back. But it doesn't. She crumbles.
Yeah.
And so we'll just leave that there.
And thus he takes on the power and transforms into a demonic figure like Anakin or Palpatine.
Any of them, right?
Yeah.
But is also now his beastly skin. Now it's very obvious. It's very visible. You can see he has become this demonic creature. And aside from the fact that it's very fairy tale, it's also, along with everything else, meant to make you believe that there is no path back. Every single successive step for Eric is intended to make the audience believe, and Kit believe, that he cannot be recovered.
And in typical American Western media, or in the American monomyth, there would be no way back. He would be killed.
Yep.
And so this is why this story is different and important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is one thing that we do, is that we think for villains who, as we've said, we believe are just heroes who haven't completed their journeys. But for villains, aside from making them do monstrous things so that you will hate them enough to want them defeated, we also will make them hideous in order to try to make you hate them enough that you don't.
And then
you don't want them redeemed.
They become the other. They become the unknown.
Right.
And so you want to destroy them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And
exactly.
Like, truthfully, like, psychologically, there isn't really a difference between a destruction of a dragon and a healing of a dragon. But I just think personally, in our society, we need to find a way to not kill our children and to also help our young men find a way back from darkness. And the seeds of story presented so textually in this way give us that opportunity to have that conversation, because the darkness that is under is domination, is the patriarchal culture, is the dominator culture, and through love he is saved.
Yep, which is my favorite thing. But now Jade tells Kit that it's time, gives her the Lux, inserts the Lux. I've seen several people commenting that this is a reference to some activities. Sounds like fun. But she
what?
Sorry.
I'm okay. I was like, this is just, love. But yeah, okay.
Listen, it can be love. It can be above her heart, and it can also be phallic. It can be both, and it is. So anyway, sorry, not sorry. Wasn't me who said it. Someone else said it, and I was like, no, they're right. But like, anyway. But the point is that it's Jade who says you're ready, just like it was Borman who says you're ready. Kit, for all her bravado and how much she just was so full of herself, her arrogance at the beginning of the show, she's now reached a point where she won't even be the one to say, I will take the cuirass. Yes, I will use the Lux. She's not doing it. It's the people that love her who are saying, you're ready. This is yours. And so Jade gives her the Lux, and she has the most amazing magical girl transformation. Sailor Moon's She-Ra,
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's literally my notes.
Losing my mind.
So I do have to call out that, like, magical girl transformation sequences are literally the most femme power fantasy. It is the most. It is like the ultimate femme power fantasy to, like, suddenly be, I am now in full complete control of my everything, and also to be beautiful at the same time, powerful and beautiful. Like, it is important, and it's why adolescent teens and many people are drawn to magical girl stories, because it gives us this. And Missy and I are just absolutely in love with this armor. It is amazing.
I'm obsessed.
Is this CGI armor? Because if it is, it's amazing. If it's not, who built it?
I want to know. My guess is it's a blend. I'm guessing that parts of it are real, like, that they built it, and then parts of it are CG.
We need that behind the scenes, and we need to know how give us the armor.
I know. But see, here's what I love about this. No matter which parts were created physically and which parts were CG, there are going to be incredibly talented and enterprising cosplayers who will figure out how to do all of it by hand.
I need
they do.
I need a Kit cosplayer to show up and like be in front of me so I can cry.
I'm so stoked to go to cons and see this. This is going to be so fun.
It's going to be
and
so
I will
good.
kneel. I will kneel before her when I see her. Let me tell you.
Call her princess.
I know.
Oh my God.
Princess. If we get a My Queen upgrade at some point, I'm going to lose my shit. Anyway, sorry. Okay. So, yeah.
Oh, you were referring to Jade? Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If Jade calls her my queen.
Oh, my God.
What? All right, guys. I'm okay.
We're fine.
Okay.
We're fine here. Everything's fine.
Everything is fine.
How are you?
Oh my God. All right. Okay. So
It's
Eric has consumed death now and wears the beastly skin, and he even roars like a beast as he charges at Allura, but Kit defends her just as Mad Mardigan said. You are her shield and her sword.
Oh my
Jumps
God.
in front of her. This show.
I'm going to kill you to get to her in his like lich
Exactly.
face.
Again, this is intended to make you think that Kit will have to kill him. That is the purpose of this line, because if he's willing to kill her, then she must be willing to kill him. This is really important. And then, in response to that, she dual wields. She whips out a second blade, and now she's going at it. Oh, it's so great.
And the meaning in this is so amazing because it's Eric's original blade from the movie, which Mad Mardigan ends up using, which kills Jade's dad, which Jade then gives the power to Kit. It's that sort of arm blade.
Jeez, that's crazy. What? What is this show?
What is this show indeed, Missy?
Oh my God. I can't function. So,
but she knocks him down and then hesitates.
Yes.
And Allura's like, wait, I have the elixir.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait a minute.
Wait a second. No.
So she said, and Kit repeats Mad Mardigan's words back and says, we all have to give something up for what we believe in. And Allura repeats back to her the words that she said back in episode 5, but we both believe that love, and Kit finishes, is the most powerful thing in the universe. So
yeah. Okay.
No.
I gotta talk about this for a second. So okay. This is specific knowledge that she understood in herself, in knowing that she needed that losing Graydon. So this is an acknowledgement of her loss of Graydon, right? So we all have to give something up. So Kit is acknowledging Allura's loss in this moment, and also this is acknowledging that Allura saved Graydon before, so she knows that saving somebody is possible. And the show is continuously saying, no, we don't need to give people up. And so Allura is able to understand this, pushing Kit's bangs back is like comforting her and like touching her head to like give her the power and
pass the knowledge to her.
And like this is also saying, because this is a second climax, this is the climax for Kit, because they're in a way like dual femme protagonists this episode.
They are.
Yeah.
Well, I told you they're like a two-headed creature.
Yeah. And so
they are the same.
They both experience you don't have to go down this path. You can make this your own story moment. And she passes the knowledge on to Kit. And this is also saying, this is also a thesis of the story.
Yes.
So it's going to come back and it's going to be important. Yeah.
Because Graydon is going to do bad things.
Yeah.
He's going to
get worse.
Fall. He's going to fall much, much farther than what Eric has. It's going to be a lot worse. So you need to know that this is possible.
Yeah.
Because that's coming. But
so Willow breaks the staff and pulls out his crystal. A kyber crystal. And says, talk to him. If he can see the light and he will come back to you. Okay, so this is like another super important line. And it is so fundamentally George Lucasian in that there is no darkness without the light. There is no light without the darkness. And so it's always possible to find the light in the darkness and get yourself out if the light is offered. And the light, joy, love is the guide out of the darkness. Ah!
And I want to bring this back to the real world. And again, I want to frame this carefully because I know that nowadays there are people who are seeing their loved ones fall into toxic ideologies that are actively harmful. And sometimes you might decide that that's irreconcilable. You might have tried everything you can to bring that person back, and you can't. And you might decide that for your own safety or that of your family and the people you care about, that you need to cut off contact. And that happens. And I am not saying, nor is this story saying, that that is wrong. Those are decisions that everyone has to make for themselves. But what this story is saying is that it's always possible. Love is all you really need. Because when Kit says, "What do I do?" Willow says, "Talk to him." And then what does she do? She holds his hands. She says, "I know you're in the dark and
lets
you're
him
scared."
hold the light. He holds the light.
Lets him hold the light. So all she's doing is talking, and she's not arguing or trying to convince. She's just saying, "I know that you're in the dark and you're scared." And she says his name. Remember, we talked about this. This is often the final step in retrieving the lost husband, which is who he is. She says his name, and she weeps and she cries.
And
because
tears are healing too.
Tears are healing. Absolutely. Tears have the same healing effect as a kiss of life. Very similar. And as I said in the Snow Queen story, that's how Gerda heals Kay.
You're far away and you're lost. Okay, I'm going to talk about the dark side as a maze metaphor. I did a whole episode on this, but I'm going to try to Cliff's Notes it as much as possible. This is to the myth of the maze and the Minotaur. And in this case, we have Kit acting as Ariadne with the string that pulls somebody out of the darkness. In our psychology, we often view ourselves as being sort of trapped in a labyrinth. And in this sort of metaphor, we are both Jason, the hero, and also the monster, the Minotaur, in the center of the maze. And to pull ourselves back out of being the monster, we have to follow the string, follow the light. And we're the only ones that can do it. The string can be provided by other people, but we're the only ones who can follow the path out by seeking our joy, seeking the light, finding the right connection. And yes, this is absolutely a metaphor for people who are on dark and destructive paths, but who you love. And all you can do is be that light that they can find.
Yes. You can't pull them out, but you can provide the string and they can pull themselves out.
Yes.
And that's
really important.
Yes. And that's what happens here. And so she weeps. Her tears are healing.
And we flash through their connections.
And the memories are so
They're
beautiful.
so good.
Oh my God. This was definitely the closest I got to crying. I actually did start. No, actually, you know what? I forget because I watched it twice. The first time I did. I bawled like a baby at this part. Like I absolutely did.
I got misty, and that's like not you. I got
but for you, that's a lot.
Like that's a lot. Like I don't cry very easily with fiction,
I understand. But I did. I was like super weeping. I got real upset here because it was so good. But like all the memories, but also, and this is so huge and so important, his beastly skin starts to burn away.
Yeah, it starts to crack and. Yeah.
Yes. But it's like you can see it. It's like smoldering. So the burning of the beastly skin is huge. Please go back and listen to our serpents episode because we talk a lot about it.
The fact that he is the worm right now.
Yes. But it's fire is consumption. So his beastly skin is being burned away, consumed away. It's being removed.
Mhm.
It's a very painful process. It's not something that's like quick and easy. This is very difficult to strip away the false identity and the false beliefs. And this is what's happening. So the tears, the memories, everything, the light, all of it, we have all these motifs all in one place, and it burns away and he is restored.
And this is really important for a couple of reasons, that Kit be the one to save Eric. So in universe, we know that the Chimerian Kiris caused one brother to kill another brother, which is probably the in-universe version of the curse of the House of Atreus, right? This is the Tanthamor curse of sacrificing children. And so in story and out of story, a curse has been lifted.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And metatextually, it's just so important that we see a brother come home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love it so much. It's so beautiful. And you remember what we talked about last episode, and I know everyone knows this, but we talked about this being Jason and Jaina. This is the son of Han and Leia, who has been lost now twice in 2 different canons. And
they did it. They brought him home. They did it.
They saved him. Oh my gosh. And the whole point is, if it's possible for him,
it's possible for everyone.
It's possible for everyone. So, yep.
I love it.
I can't function. So then Borman emerges having...
Wait, no. Eric says,
what?
looks at Willow, because Willow's like, you'll be okay.
Oh, who's he?
Who's he? Who's that? And I'm like, come on, Eric. You were told these stories as a kid. Did you just not pay attention? I guess not.
He's just a silly little baby boy.
I mean, he is sort of reborn at this moment. It's fine.
Yeah, this is the baby. He doesn't know.
It knows nothing, Eric.
But speaking of babies, Borman is reborn. he emerges out. Yes. Oh, yeah. No, Borman emerges out and having apparently defeated all of the Gales and says, I want my mom.
Yeah, so good.
She's a queen now.
But he has retrieved the key item, which is Graydon's flute, which he hands to Allura. And Jade says, no one is going to know how brave he really was. And Kit says, they will. I'm going to tell them.
No, Allura says that.
It was Kit.
Really?
I watched it 3 times.
Oh, okay. I thought
Kit is looking at, or Allura is looking at the flute. And not doing anything. And Kit is saying, I'm going to tell them, which, Kit always does say things.
Yes. Well,
but I find that so fascinating. It is important that when you have lost heroes like this, that there is a certain amount of catharsis around telling the tales, telling the deeds, because then they live on longer than their experience, and thus their heroicism and what they have done inspires the next generation. It is a form of bringing the elixir back for the lost hero.
And this is important because, look, not all stories are the same. Like, for instance, what did we say earlier about the crone becoming a mage? That in Star Wars, that typically means becoming a Force ghost. They don't usually survive into that phase. And that's okay. That's a valid way to tell that story. And, in this story, they're putting very heavy emphasis on characters surviving. Because that is going to be the overall overriding theme of this story. Most sacrifices in this are not going to be permanent. That's going to be extremely unusual. For example, I would expect Allagash to reappear at some point. But
it was great to have him back.
Right. But the point is that even though we know that Graydon is okay and that he's going to come back,
the characters didn't.
The characters didn't. And it is okay to end his story, as far as they know at this point in time, with, well, unfortunately, he did not survive this quest, but we are going to pass on his story because that does, as Marie Claire said, cause him to live on, and the elixir is passed on, and the cycle continues, and the journey continues, and so on and so forth. So just to remember that there are many ways to tell these stories as long as you understand the symbols you're working with, which is why the flute surviving is very important.
And there is catharsis in acknowledging character sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
It is really, really important. So the sun is rising.
Jade's checking out Kit and the Cuirass.
Yeah.
It's a great scene.
They're very sure that they're going to make it home. Right? Borman's like, we'll make it back. You know, the journey home. I actually don't think we'll ever see it. I think it'll just be like, and they're home.
I think they'll just, it'll be like,
or they're wherever. They're wherever they need to be, right? I don't think we need to see the journey home. It's always shorter.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be explained.
I'm not a fan of watching characters cross the same terrain twice. I don't like that.
Yeah.
But no, I do want to just quickly point, just because it did make me laugh. But the thing with Jade checking out Kit and saying, yeah, like, oh, you know, like once I figure out how to get it off or whatever, like it's very funny and it's very cute how Jade's checking her out. But I just wanted to comment, and I know I'm terrible, but like presumably she needed Jade's help to get it on. She's probably going to need Jade's help to get it off.
Absolutely. Hey, fanfic writers, go.
There you go.
It's fanfic food.
Woohoo!
Go. I look forward to reading it.
Yes.
All right, Jade. What if the Wyrm or whatever is still down there waiting, looking back? Yeah, and Allura confirms, I saw it. And Willow's like, and now we've really pissed it off.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of confirmation, like, isn't worrying your thing? And Willow's like, no, I'm a mage now. I've got you girls. And soon there will be more. And Missy, he has us too. He has us girls. He has us.
He was talking about all of us. Oh, I love it.
And, you know, it'll be like a snowball gathering size and speed as it rolls downhill. Did I ever tell you about that time that Mad Mardigan turned into a snowball and rolled downhill? Oh my God, I love this so much.
I know, this made me so happy. I was just like, thank you for referencing this goofy scene. It makes me so happy.
And Allura looks back, like Orpheus towards Eurydice. Kit calls her back to the light because she can't go to the underworld right now. We need you up here. We need the goddess up here. And this is totally a metaphor for not getting stuck in other people's darkness.
Yep. Yeah. Graydon's got to deal with his own stuff down there.
He's going to write poetry in his book. We don't know where his book is, but he's got it with him and he's writing poetry. And he's as Robert Bly would say, he's canoeing on the on like the underworld river. He's communing with the undead spirits. All right.
One thing I noticed though is that as she turns back to go with the others, she quickly grabs her left arm. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It hurt her heart to leave him behind.
Oh. She loves him.
She does. Oh, poor baby.
I need her to grieve big time. I need some tears.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's going to manifest as rage.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I'm good with that too. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about it later, but I think it is. All indications are that that's how she reacts to grief. But we'll see.
All right. Let's talk about Wyrm time.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. Wyrm time.
So we literally like travel through the city and go into the temple and go into the Wyrm through the birth canal portal opening. And Graydon was dead to begin with. Absolutely dead. He is among the fallen soldiers of all the armies of the world. Where it's exactly like they did it exactly. I think they probably filmed these things at the same time. He is where Willow was in the vision.
In his vision. Yep. Same.
He has no scars, but he has his ring. He is a fresh, new thing in the underworld.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And he is reborn. He's got his hair tied back, so that's an indication that he is bound.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we see on top of this heaping hill of dead bodies, a vision of Allura in black leather and hot.
And freaking hot. Yes.
Short hair too, right? So a different sort of Allura than we've ever seen. And
Wyrm's real into cutting off their hair for some reason. I don't know.
I don't know what that's about, but like, yeah, it's really interesting. I'll have to think about that for years or whatever it takes to get Willow out.
Yeah, cutting it off, binding it, whatever. Anything but long and flowing, apparently.
Yeah. The end, what, like, Graydon's like, what? The end, the beginning, the dawn of the next age. I need somebody.
My age.
I need somebody to help me, to sit beside me at the head of all tables, lead the world into my light. Graydon, I want you.
Oh, no.
So we've already talked about like purpose and like how people like want to be wanted. They want to have people to tell them their purpose. And literally it's playing into all the things the crone called out that were his shadow, his desire to be wanted. He wants to be wanted back. I want you to want me. Alexa, play Cheap Trick.
But I mean, he's just a goner. There's no hope for this guy with this insanely hot, dark Allura saying, I want you. Like, nope. He is not your strongest soldier. It is not going to work out for him.
Means different things if he rejects the Wyrm and then falls to the darkness in a different way, or if he accepts the Wyrm and yeah, this is Wyrm Allura. Okay, so what is being said here? This is the Wyrm, and I have no doubt about it because this scene has changed already from dead Allura and Willow to Graydon and Allura. And it's a false vision, I think. It's not really real. It's just an idealized version of what the Wyrm thinks it wants, I think.
Yeah.
It's not true, but maybe what the Wyrm is saying is true. That's the tricky thing about Willow. Sometimes it says the thing and then it turns out in a completely new way. I want somebody to sit beside me at the head of all tables to lead the world into my light. Like, Graydon, I want you. This could literally actually be Allura as we know it, because the Wyrm is weird like that, not understanding that Allura wants Graydon and interpreting that. And then the end is going to be that Allura and Graydon are sitting at the head of all tables, leading the world into light. I just...
But this is the thing. This is why the ultimate question about the dark aspect of a feminine character is, who is it for? Who is it for? And as far as the Wyrm is concerned, he created this for Graydon, to tempt Graydon, to entice Graydon. But to your point, that doesn't mean it's not also
Allura.
Part of Allura, true of Allura, and that Allura may not, in fact, face such a manifestation of herself in the future.
She may. It'll mean a different thing when it happens. But yeah, so at this point in time, I do think that this is a reflection of Graydon's anima, right? So his dark, deep desires that are his shadow self within him. And the Wyrm is just plucking it out and presenting it to him. But the thing about a divine couple is your dark anima is present in your selected mate. Did that make sense? No,
it did.
So the Lich Graydon or Dark Graydon is in Allura as her animus, and Dark Allura is inside of Graydon. And when you have an alchemical union, it's because you see both the shadows and the goodness in the other person, and they reflect and bounce across each other and then you become more whole because you can see all of your missing integrated pieces in the other person, and then it comes back to you. Does that make sense? Again, it's late. We've been recording for a while.
No, it did. That makes perfect sense. I mean, that's exactly what it is that, you know, he's seeing the missing parts of himself and her.
Yes. And like, you need to like, there's a desire to rule that's missing from Allura. There's a desire to be sexual potentially that's missing from Allura. There's all of these things that Graydon is seeing in Dark Allura that are Allura. I still 100% don't know if we'll see Allura or Dark Allura or Wyrm Allura in the show going forward. We might hear her. I don't know, because this is, again, what I talked about. This is the unknown. This is the subconscious that Graydon is stuck in right now, but he's going to leave the subconscious. He's still going to be in the underworld, even if he leaves, and it would be dope if he ended up getting armor. That would be really cool with a mask, right? Just because that's a metaphor for still being in a coffin and still being dead. Like, you think about Vader. Vader is in a walking coffin. Kylo is in a coffin because he's stuck in the underworld. Things like that. Like, these things are very, very symbolic, and they mean you're still a dead boy walking around on the earth, and you kind of need the protection from the earth, because if you actually like come in contact with the living world, you're reminded you actually should be alive, and that's bad for dead boys. So there's a lot going on here. That was a lot of speculation. I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
Graydon is a lost husband in the underworld. There's a couple of really important things that we still didn't mention about lost husbands, because now he is in the underworld. There is a motif where the metaphorically dead lost husband often communicates to the bride, to the traveling, the atoning wife via sleep.
Yep.
And so that's a forced bond.
So sometimes it's yes, it's a forced bond. Sometimes it's not even sleep necessarily. Sometimes it's like a metaphorical dream.
Right.
So for instance, in Tamlin, they have a special meeting place that they can only go at night. And so they meet at this special meeting place that is a crossroads, and it's intended to be sort of like at the boundary between the human world and the fairy world, and only at a certain time of night can they meet there.
And because sleep, or this nighttime, is a metaphoric death, it's the truth showing that the bride is the one who can wake him from the actual death. So it's just a way to show that she has the power to break the curse, essentially. And it's so funny that we got this in TLJ, the Force Bond. And often you also see that it's an enchantress that has trapped the lost husband. We saw this with Eric in The Crone. I believe that the Black Bull of Norway also has this. Cupid is trapped by his mother, Venus.
Tamlin, which I just mentioned, is trapped by the Fairy Queen.
Yeah. So the fact that Dark Allura is here is also entirely on brand with Lost Husband. Graydon's checking all the boxes.
He really is. He really is. But I think that we should leave further speculation to our live stream.
Absolutely.
Because I'm really excited to dive deeper into all of that and really dig into it. So.
And before it ends, we have it cut to Dire Straits. Money for nothing. It's fine. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I have no comment.
I just feel like this is what I want to say. I don't even want to make any critiques because of the fact that there are so many bad faith critiques by people that were never going to like this in the first place, because frankly, they're not the target audience, because and they're really throwing a tantrum because they're not the target audience. And so I don't want to give those people any air. On the other hand, I think it's important that, part of what we do on this show is that we are honest and we talk about the things that we thought that worked and the things that we thought didn't. There's a lot of differing opinions on the music. Some people really, really love it and some people don't. I definitely fall in the middle, where I feel like some of it worked really, really well. I loved Black Hole Sun. I loved the Bruce Springsteen song.
Crimson and Clover for me worked so well.
Right. The Bruce Springsteen song in this episode I thought was amazing, worked really, really well for me. And other ones did not work at all. So it was very hit or miss for me. I certainly don't want to tell the crew to just stop altogether trying to do this. I like the idea behind it, and I would like to continue seeing what they create. I do think that I think choosing better tonal matches might help.
Yeah. Because when the tone matches the scene, like Crimson and Clover or like Black Hole Sun, it integrates perfectly. It's just if it's jarring, it almost takes you out of the mood, which is not what the storytellers want, I think.
Right.
Even though thematically it might be exactly what they're going for, it just might not vibe with the mood of the characters, because we need the mood of the characters to go into the credits. You think about how John Williams flows into the credits of Star Wars.
Yep.
And then goes into the hard rock as hard rock as John Williams gets to, which he can rock it.
Or just like the fanfare. Like
yeah, like the fanfare.
He works his way into the fanfare.
Yeah, there's a working into it. So you got to like be very careful with those musical selections. But we get through the credits and we see that this was actually, oh my gosh, the first of 3 volumes.
And I got to be honest with you, I was so out of my mind the first time I watched it. I actually completely missed it. Didn't even see it because I was just so, what did I just see? So I was losing my mind. And so when I saw people talking about this online, I was like, wait, what? And so I went back and I watched it again. I was like, oh my gosh. And so I'm so excited. And
they linger.
Yes. And we don't have official confirmation yet, but there are lots and lots of good signs.
Warwick Davis has said season 2. John Kasdan retweeted that and said, well, if the High Aldwin says it's so. But I would like Lucasfilm to release a public statement. It just would make me feel better.
Yeah. Please tell us that season 2 and 3 are in fact renewed.
Please just say that you're going to make the whole thing and I will feel so much better, because that means you could film it all at once, right? Yeah. You could do it all together and then it's done and release it, whatever you need to do. But like, there's just something so wonderful about telling a fully complete story and then that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, please tell us an intact story. And and I don't think they would show us these volume 2 and 3 if there wasn't an extremely clear plan of what to do with volume 2 and 3. I don't think it's like, we have a loose outline for 2. No, I think you've got full scripts written for 2 probably and a good outline for 3. That is my guess.
We've already seen some hints, I think, thematically on what they need to do.
Well, thematically, but also just like there's been multiple interviews with the cast this year where they've said, maybe we'll get to that in season 2. So like there's a lot of talk.
There's more things to be revealed about Graydon. Oh, really?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Tony is on my list because he said the finale is explosive and he exploded. And then he said, it's really fun. It's going to be funner. It's really fun. And I'm like, Tony.
I saw that. I mean, I don't know if he has any idea how he's triggering us with that. That's not his fault. But yeah, I hear you.
What the hell, Tony?
I know. We're still tender, Tony. Be careful, okay? All right. Anyway.
But honestly, this cast is a joy, and I want to see more.
They are so fun. If you don't follow them on social media, I do recommend looking them up. They are really fun. They clearly had a great time making this. They seem to really genuinely like each other. They're always in the comments of each other's posts, just ragging on each other. It's hilarious. And also being very loving. They're always very
positive and loving.
Yeah, promoting each other and everything. So it's really great. So I do want the behind the scenes. I need the confirmation of seasons 2 and 3 like yesterday. I need it right now, please. And I'm going to miss Willow Wednesdays because it's been fun.
And speaking of that, we're going to do a live stream. And as more things come available, we will put out more content as we are able to. And I will blast it over social media. So please do pay attention to that. Gosh, this has been so fun.
This has been so fun. I have had such a good time. I'm so glad that you said, let's do this, because this is just so cool. And my expectations were not like, I had no idea we were going to get something this rich.
It was
and filling.
I'm not going to lie, a lot of work.
I'm so sorry.
No.
Just your appreciation.
No, but just like to me, these are so dense, and like thinking about them and then editing these episodes and like releasing it and then just like wanting to be involved in the fandom is a lot. Like I care so much about this fandom and it is a joy to be part of. So I love all of the fans who've been, invested in following Willow. We'll be celebrating Willow next weekend. It'll be so good. And I just really want to thank everyone for being so positive and supporting this show and Willow. And yeah, thank you.
And thank you to the creators for giving us this show, because we have loved every minute of it.
Loved every minute of it. And we look forward to everything else that you give us. This is a gift of a show that we have been able to experience and enjoy. So thank you. All right, Missy, where can people find you if they're looking for you online other than next Saturday for Celebrating Willow?
You can find me on Tumblr at All Girls Are Princesses.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week on our live stream. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is provided by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Joe Allen D, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C, and Susan. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, and our website, whattheforce.ca. We also have a Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.